So I will call this meeting of December 7th Plan Commission to order. And first, I will, since we don't have word from our technical facilitator this time, I will go to communications, disclosures, and recusals. Members of the body should make any required disclosures or recusals under the city's ethics code. Are there any disclosures or recusals? I'm going to have to get used to not having everybody's face on a screen here. So, okay, so no disclosures or recusals. And I don't think we have anything under agenda item 1. There's a few things that I want to just make sure that everybody is aware of. If people did not sign in electronically or have not signed a green sheet yet, but want to speak, be sure and do a green sheet. When you speak, this includes plan commissioners as well as members of the public. Be sure and be close enough to the microphone so that we're recording this and it's videoing to make sure that your voice is going to be heard. So make sure you do that. Then also, I want to just remind people that no final decisions are going to be made tonight. This is a time for the Plan Commission to hear what people have to say and to have informal discussion, to get briefed on thoughts about the sustainability plan and about the area plans, hear from staff on what has been going on and what some of the issues are that we will eventually have to make a recommendation on. One other thing I'm going to say is because we have so many registrants tonight, which is kind of unusual for our special meetings like this, we are not going to go ahead with the item that we had on the agenda in regard to demolitions. We're going to reschedule that to a different Plan Commission meeting, because one of the things that we do is for these special meetings is we strictly adhere to stopping the meeting at 8 o'clock. So we are not going to go ahead with that particular item. And with that, and we are going to take all testimony first up. So that will allow people who do not want to stay around for our sustainability plan update. If you're only interested in the West Plan or Northeast Plan, then you can go home and have dinner if you want to. So first up, we're going to take testimony. And you, of course, could watch this at home if you want to do that, too. So with that, I'm going to turn to Heather, and she will be calling up folks who want to talk to us. And just a reminder, 3 minutes, and we will strictly adhere to that since we do have a number of things we want to get through.
All right, thank you, Chair Zellers. So I'm going to start with folks who have signed up online earlier. We have first Tom Jacobs in opposition to the public comment, and I'm not sure which item Tom is speaking to, but of Highlands Avenue. And if Tom could come up, Tom would be followed by Gwen Long. Is Tom here? Tom is not here. Let's go to Gwen Long, who would be followed by Andrew Bent. Gwen Long of Sauk Creek Drive in opposition to the west and northeast area plans. And Gwen, if you want to sit there, the mics are all on and will remain on throughout. Thank you.
Okay.
And you can stand if you prefer. It'll probably pick up either standing or sitting. Okay.
Hello, my name is Gwen Long, and I live at 225 Sauk Creek Drive, and I'm a biker. I'm an environmentalist, and I'm a local beer drinker. Thank you very much. We're here to represent the many people who put a lot of time in writing letters to the commission and the West Side Area Plan, the neighbors who have posted over 80 yard signs throughout the west side of Madison, and the over 300 citizens who signed a petition opposing a bike path, and the many others throughout Madison who strongly oppose a proposed bike path through Sauk Creek Greenway. How many of you have had a chance to ever walk through the Greenway? It's a beautiful area. I really hope you can get through there sometime because it's really just lovely. The West Area Plan states, the City of Madison invites you to join us as we create a West Area Plan. We'll work with the residents, community organizations, and neighborhoods to chart a course of action for the next 10 years. Unfortunately, no one knew about the plan, understood what the plan was about, and why they should get involved, so very few, unfortunately, attended. After reading there was a memo this week from Linda Horvath and Ben Zeller to the commission. And after reading that, those who did show up now feel our input might be ignored and minimized. If you guys had a chance to attend the last 3 meetings in November, you would have directly seen and heard from the many, many, many citizens who oppose the bike path. It seems that the department heads know better and have their own agendas all planned already, and it seems somewhat of a farce for those of us who attended community meetings at the request of the West Area Plan and the City of Madison to provide input, write letters, sign petitions, and provide our opinions. In today's Wisconsin State Journal, the State Opinions Court held up a denial for the Kohler Corporation to fill in a wetlands for a golf course. 2 courts found the DNR issued permits that did not have sufficient information to assess whether the project would have sufficient adverse impact to the wetlands and environment. The DNR permits were reversed. This small group of environmentalists up in Sheboygan stood up against a multi-million-dollar coal company, golf lobbyists, and the state DNR, and they won. Does the commission have sufficient, accurate information about the tree loss and effects on the environment and nature to support this bike path that is not supported by the community and that it was meant to serve? Our community is here tonight, standing up against this very strong Bike Federation lobby and others inside City Hall. We, the taxpayers who are most affected, seem to get minimized and marginalized for standing up for the climate and environment, our neighborhood and democracy. Please follow the 2020 City of Madison Urban Tree Task Force Plan. One of their goals is achieving a tree canopy of coverage of over 40%. In 2013, the Madison tree canopy was only 23%. Sadly, 10 years later, it is far below that 23%, missing the goal of 40, which is a national average. Madison has a big problem with not respecting the importance of trees in our environment.
Thank you. That does conclude your available time. Thank you for being here.
Next is Andrew Bent of North Highlands Avenue, to be followed by Ingrid Jordan Thaden. Andrew?
Tom Jacobs is here.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, well, thank you for having us. I'm speaking to item 8A about possible proactive rezoning to remove TRR designation. And there are a few key points about this. I'm the president of the Highlands Community Association neighborhood group, so I know I do speak for the entire neighborhood. We had 44 out of 113 houses respond to us about this issue, and we heard about it on Monday. That's a group that's really taken very good care of the Highlands over many decades. And so the key points I want to make are 2. It's that the Highlands is a unique resource in the city as a historic locale, landmark. It doesn't have that designation, but we're prepared to work with people like Heather on that. And the second point is it really is a de facto Madison City Park. It's heavily used by walkers who are attracted to the Highlands from outside the Highlands. Dozens of people every day, weekday, dozens of people per hour on weekends. This is more pedestrian recreational walking use than any of our west side Madison parks get until you get maybe over toward Wexford or something. So it really is a very attractive locale for Madison residents, and it depends for that on its historic nature as the work of landscape architect O.C. Simmons. So this is where we can all educate each other of why it's perhaps not a good idea to put the TRR zoning in the west area plan at this point in time. O.C. Simmons was one of the preeminent landscape architects of the early 20th century, along with Frederick Law Olmsted. He's a designer of Morton Arboretum in Chicago, Lincoln Park, parts of Lincoln Park, designer of Tenney Park in Madison, designer of Vilas Park in Madison, and designer of the Highlands in Madison. So the Highlands is really a special instance of landscape architecture design in the Midwestern United States. And so that historic nature, and O.C. Simmons, you can look him up online. There are biographies of him. He's well known. That is a very good reason by itself to consider that we may not want to, in essence, decimate that work of art, if you will, landscape architecture work, by removing the large lot size and large setback requirements that were put in with TRR zoning. So a bit about TRR zoning, if you look at the statement of purpose, it says in the statement of purpose of the zoning code, which the city put in, the planning department and the council put in about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that's established to stabilize and protect the natural beauty, historic character, and park-like setting of just the Highlands, basically. A wooded, low-density residential neighbor intended to promote preservation of the neighborhood's historic buildings, tree cover, and landscape plan. This district is not intended for use in new development.
Thank you very much, Andrew. That concludes your available
Okay, I
time.
didn't manage my time well. There's more to share, and I'd be happy to share it.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Ingrid Jordan Thaden of Sauk Creek Drive, to be followed by Tom Jacobs.
Hello, good evening. I'm going to keep my plea short and sweet. My main concern about a bike path through the Sauk Creek Greenway is that the lighting will disturb the nocturnal animals that live there. We have a long list. We actually don't even know how many different animals or birds specifically, but also mammals that come in and out of the Sauk Creek Greenway, den there, live there throughout the entire year. And if you put a lighted path through this small little place, where will they go? So there's no good assessment of what wildlife is actually there. We just know as neighbors and community members that they're there because they come out into our yards occasionally. We find their scat. We find their dead animals. We find all kinds of things, and I worry about where they will go. So I think that the bike paths in our neighborhood are great already, and putting a lighted path through the Greenway means the animals have nowhere to go. So I could talk about the trees a long time, but I'm mainly worried right now about the bike path. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid.
Okay, next is Tom Jacobs of South Highlands Avenue, to be followed by George Jessian.
Good evening. I'm here to echo Andrew Bent, our Highlands Homeowners Association president, basically to ask that you not densify the Highlands area. It was set up, gosh, in 1912 by O.C. Simmons, who also had a hand in designing the White City in Chicago for the Columbian Exposition in the 1800s. But it was a very unique thing done, and the city embraced it. Your predecessors embraced this, that the very park-like nature of this neighborhood be just a kind of a very unique setting in the Midwest. And as Andrew said, many from outside of our neighborhood come and use the parks. And I actually invite you to come do the same, because it's a very unique area where there's a loop, and O.C. Simmons designed it so the roads kind of curved like that, so all you see is trees are going up. It's not just a laid out plat. And there are a lot of pockets of parkways where there's pathways deeply into the woods, and a lot of people use it from all over the city. So I know I've got a very limited time. I've been a resident there for almost 20 years and really enjoy the unique nature of it. And I ask that you know, I know there's a directive to densify the city and the lake, but I ask that you make an exception here and not listen to the staff, who I have great respect for, but go ahead and make a decision to keep the Highlands as a park because it's a unique gem that the city has enjoyed for many years. Like I said, your predecessors embraced the idea back in the 1910s and around 1912, I guess, is when the plat went through. But it's what makes our city very unique. And you know, I travel a lot for business, and many people, when I say I'm from Madison, I go, "Oh, that's the coolest city." You know, and you all know it. You know, it's a very unique type of setting that we have here. And I think this is an asset. It's a gem, and I respectfully request that you keep it that way.
Thank you, Tom.
Next is George Jessian of Oak Creek Trail, to be followed by Edward Hummel. No, George? Edward Hummel of Whitaker Road, to be followed by Dan Steer.
So, yeah, I'm Edward Hummel, and I live about a half block from the Salt Creek Greenway. I use that greenway all the time. I'm also an avid cyclist. I've been grateful for all the great bike paths and trails in Madison and Dane County. However, I'm opposed to a bike trail through the Salt Creek Greenway for two reasons. The bike trail wouldn't go anywhere, and it also would degrade the resource of the Greenway. So if you look at that, the part of the bike trail that's built already in back of the Brothers Main Shopping Center along Mineral Point Road, you go to the southern terminus of that, and you're looking at 6 lanes of traffic, and the belt line is up there, and it's like, you know, why would you ride a bike there? If you want to go to the Target Shopping Center, you have to go across 2 fairly dangerous lanes of traffic to get there, especially the off-ramp coming down off of the Beltline. So it just, to me, it doesn't serve anything. If there was an elementary school at the end of it, I'd be all for this bike trail. But there isn't. It just doesn't go anywhere. And you have good bike lanes on Westfield Road, on High Point Road. Farmington is a 25 or 20 mile an hour road with multiple speed bumps along it. Tree Lane is very bikeable. And so the Greenway is surrounded by good alternative bike routes. So I'm perplexed at why they want to build this bike lane through there, because it doesn't serve anything on the north or the south end. And, you know, it costs a lot to make these things. And can't the city of Madison find other more useful areas to put in a bike route? That's what I'm thinking anyway.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Edward.
Okay, next is Dan Steer or Steyer? No, Dan? Okay, Chris Gomez Schmidt of Farmington Way, to be followed by Susie Eckerman.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to address you. I am here to oppose the addition of bike paths to the West Area Plan through the Sauk Creek Green Space. I would just like to point out that one of the confusing things through this process has been attending meetings through engineering, which is trying to fix the water drainage issues through the green space, knowing that there's a West plan and a bike plan and all these things. That almost seems like city agencies aren't talking to each other about these processes. And it's really hard to tell which decisions are being made in which order. And to me, this seems like I took the surveys, I participated in meetings, and a couple months ago, I was actually feeling pretty good about this process in talking with the engineering department, and they had stepped back. And we're really looking at working with the community to try to present the engineering plan and come up with the plan and the next steps. And so I was pretty confident about that. And then all of a sudden, a bike plan cropped up, and then all of a sudden it wasn't sure if it was going to be lit or who was in charge of it or why it was there. And so I'm going to urge you, before the drainage issues get figured out in this green space, and I don't think there is any doubt that that needs to be fixed, don't commit to putting a bike path through there. Right now, there's spaces you can't get through because of the drainage through there. And so I would really like to see the engineering department being given a chance to work with the community to problem solve this in a way, the same way that years ago, the actual sanitary access, that process worked with the community to figure that out. The other point I'll make is that this green space right now, 30 years of neglect by the city through the green spaces, it has relied on residents to do the upkeep and actually provide like habitat restoration, attention to the spring ephemerals and wildflowers that grow there, and trying to do some sort of restoration. It's disappointing that forestry hasn't been involved and parks haven't been involved, because this really does serve as a wildlife corridor at this point. 30 years ago when it was built, there's a lot of space west of this area still for wildlife. And now I feel like it does serve like this tiny, narrow corridor for all kinds of wildlife. And so I guess, when the surveys are asking us if we want, interconnected green spaces, I'm sort of thinking of it as, yes, that's important, but not
Thank
for
you.
people,
Thank you,
for
Chris. That
wildlife.
concludes your available time.
Thanks. for your
Thank you.
time.
All right, Susie Eckerman of North Highlands, to be followed by Faith Fitzpatrick. Susie?
Hello. My name is Susie Eckerman, and I live at 6209 North Highlands Avenue. I'm here to speak tonight in opposition of rezoning TRR to SRC1. I oppose this change from both the historic and environmental perspective. As you know, the TRR zoning plays a significant role in protecting the historic nature and park-like setting of the Highlands neighborhood. The City of Madison Historical Plan was adopted by the city in May of 2020 and developed to celebrate and preserve the places that represent Madison's collective history. The plan recommends strategies and tools to utilize the existing land, zoning, and development standards to support preservation. Preserving historical landscapes allows us to connect with the past and understand the lives of those that came before us. These landscapes offer tangible evidence of our history, reflecting values, beliefs, practices of different cultures and periods. We understand that it's a privilege to live in a historical setting, and we fully believe that we are not the owners, but instead stewards of the land. It is our responsibility to preserve this history and the beauty so that it can be enjoyed by future generations of Madison residents. The plan also states from November 30th that the district does not have any requirements to retain trees. As you know, the City of Madison is a member of the Dane County Tree Canopy Working Group. It's a collaboration among local governments, planning organizations, academic partners, and state agencies that aim to identify opportunities and strategies to protect existing trees and expand the tree canopy across Dane County. The City of Madison Forestry and Streets provides tree planting, pruning, maintenance for over 96,000 trees and 700 miles of Madison streets. I would argue that protecting the tree canopy is not at odds with the goals of the city, but instead align with the directive of sustainability and resilience efforts of the mayor's office that refer to urban green spaces as an essential part of our community's fabric. They provide space for recreation, connecting with nature, areas for plants and animals to thrive, and important ecosystems services that provide clean air, water, air temperature control, regulation, carbon carbon sequencing, and noise reduction. Our neighborhood has also done its part to preserve the tree canopy and park-like setting of our neighborhood. Since the community association was formed, all annual meetings have focused on educating residents about planting and preserving native trees, as well as informing on removal of invasive species that can affect and be harmful to trees. The association has also done bulk tree purchases of native trees and provided planting instructions to the neighbors to help renew and restore the canopy. Unfortunately, even with these efforts, Dane County has lost 30% of its tree canopy since 2010. This is a precious resource, and it's essential that we preserve this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Susie.
Okay, next is Faith Fitzpatrick of Spring Court, to be followed by George Meyer.
Hi, Faith Fitzpatrick. You hear me okay? I'm opposed to the bike path in Sauk Creek. In putting together my comments this evening, I went back and looked at what was on the heading up for the agendas for Plan Commission. It's who benefits, who is burdened, who does not have a voice, and how can policymakers mitigate unintended consequences. What my comments here are keyed in on is the water aspect of Sauk Creek. It also comes up if you look at the water issue for being clean and abundant water. I think is the second issue that was brought up with the sustainability plan. It shows up for stuff tonight as well. One of the things with the Sauk Creek, if you look at a map, you can see that the woods are contiguous cover. They show up separate from the urban area. These woods have existed for over 100 years. They show up similarly on maps at the turn of the century. So they predate the agricultural development, and they also predate the urban development. Sauk Creek is a creek that runs through those woods. It is not a farm ditch, as it has been mislabeled by some. The greenway is a waterway, and the forest itself provides hydrologic benefits. Those hydrologic benefits have not been realized. They are not on paper. The bike path constricts the floodway and the waterway that goes through the woods. The bike path would constrict it. It would constrict it further than has already been currently constricted by the sanitary line. So this kind of conflicts with, as somebody recently mentioned, plans for engineering for flood mitigation through this reach. At the same time, we know that the climate has changed over the last 50 years since the infrastructure is put in. There's been a 17% increase in average precipitation, and we know we're going to have more frequent, intense rainfalls. So bike path is infrastructure in a waterway, infrastructure in a floodway, constricts that floodway. It impedes on what decision-making and alternatives that engineering has to deal with the floods in this waterway. And just wanted to state, too, that the trees and the channel erosion are not opposed to each other. Bike path is going to require maintenance. Floods are going to get it. It's going to get washed out. So something's going to have fixed. So I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you, Faith.
George Meyer of Randolph Drive, followed by Susan Brugman.
Thank you for this opportunity. Some background that helps shape my opinions on this. I worked for the Department of Natural Resources 32 years, served as secretary for 8, and during that time had the management responsibilities over 1.5 million acres of public lands, and dealt with how to manage public lands and the competing good uses that could be made of those lands: biking, hiking, wildlife, protection of rare species, plants and animals. My other point of view is I live right across the street from the entrance on Tree Lane into that into the greenway. I spent a lot of time on my deck at my age, and I make all the observations of how that is being used. It is being heavily used by hikers because of its natural condition. There's a lot of wildlife, as you heard. I see families walking through it. Our end of that area is multicultural, highly diverse, and you see families all the time walk through it. We take our grandson through it, and saw wildlife that he would not have seen other places in the city. If a bike path is put in, then there's going to be a loss of trees, and the wildlife will be heavily disturbed, in some cases lost. Now, we just happen to be in that same area you're probably aware with. It was in the paper along Mineral Point when they had to cut down 66 trees to put the bike path in. Alderman Tischler fought that on behalf of his constituents, got it down to 22. That starts only the other end of our block. There will be a lot more trees that would have to be cut down. We're talking hundreds to put in a bike path through this greenway, and there'd be a lot of loss to the natural conditions. In addition, as was talked about before, it'd be contrary to the purposes of this greenway, which is water quality protection, because there'll be more erosion and getting into the waterway, plus constrictions on the flood benefits that this was designed for. There is not a need for another bike path there, as you've heard. Within a block either way, there are bike paths that function very well. When I ask why put one in there, they said, well, we can then run a bike path up Randolph Drive, which we see all the time. There is a bike path there. It is rarely used. There's a very, very steep incline. The only bikers I see go up there are athletic
Thank you, George. That doesn't
individuals. So
include your
thank you for the
available time.
opportunities.
Thank you for being here. Yes.
Next up is Susan Brugman of Sauk Creek Drive, to be followed by Jim Long.
Good evening. Thank you for giving us the chance to speak how we feel about this. I, too, am here opposing the bike path in the Greenway. There will be a significant number of trees removed in order to just clean up the creek, which we all know is in serious need, as you've heard from the neglect for so many years. To put a bike path in there would require taking down so many other trees. It will eliminate a huge number of trees, which is not environmentally friendly. As you've heard again, trees remove carbon dioxide, they provide shade, a habitat for the vast wildlife that live there. They also reduce noise pollution and give other benefits. The paved path will increase water runoff, and it will decrease absorption into the ground. A lighted bike path increases light pollution, but it does not reduce police calls. Other new paths in Madison have led to an increase in police calls and complaints, and we've seen that reported. So I'm just going to go off of this for a minute and just say my personal experience. I don't live right on it, but I live close to it. I use it almost every single day. I walk my dog through there. I run into so many other walkers. I've seen children playing in there. They've made these wood teepees from branches that have fallen down, and it's wonderful. I mean, here they are out in nature, learning about nature, playing in nature, not on their computers and their screens and that sort of thing. By the time you put a bike path in, you're going to lose so much of what is there. It won't be the same experience at all. And I've heard people say, well, we want people to be able to bike through this wonderful woods. There won't be a woods. There won't be a woods. We won't have all of these wonderful animals, the trees, everything. It's just a very peaceful, wonderful place to enjoy. And actually, as a walker through there, I enjoy the hiking. If bikes start coming through there, I will no longer be able to use it myself, and I'm sure many other walkers that are older like me will feel the same way because the bikes come whizzing past. It's dangerous. With my dog, we one day just ran into a biker at the edge of the woods. And I didn't see the biker, but she did, and she flipped out, and she dragged me down on the ground. So it can be dangerous also. So basically, again, environmental reasons. It's just a gem in our city. I moved here from California, where you don't get to have such a thing as live by this nature center and yet still have all of the conveniences of a city right close by. I can walk into the woods or I can walk down the street to get my hair cut or go to Walgreens. Life doesn't get better than that, and I would just be devastated to see that go away. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Next is Jim Long of Sauk Creek Drive, to be followed by Nino Amato.
Good evening. The proposed bike path would remove a substantial number of additional trees in its construction. I am an avid cyclist and enjoy the city's bike system, but this path would be redundant to nearby safe bike paths at a huge environmental cost, especially under our current understanding with climate change and experience of global warming. I'm reading from Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg's 12 Reasons Why Cities Need More Trees. Number 1, temperature control. One large tree is equivalent to 10 air conditioning units, and the shade they provide can reduce street temperature by more than 30%. Number 2, noise reduction. Trees can reduce loudness by up to 50%. In urban areas filled with the sound of cars, construction, sirens, airplanes, music, trees are essentially the best way to block noise and keep cities quieter. Number 3, air purity. Trees remove an astonishing amount of harmful pollutants and toxins in the air. Number 4, oxygen. While absorbing all these pollutants, trees also put more oxygen back into the urban environment. Oxygen levels are significantly lower in cities compared to the countryside. Trees help solve that problem. Number 5, water management. Trees do more than just shelter us and our buildings from rain. They also absorb huge quantities of water, reduce runoff, neutralize the severity of flooding, and make flooding more unlikely altogether. Number 6, psychological health. Studies have proven what we instinctively know to be true, that human beings are significantly happier when surrounded by nature rather than sterile urban environments. Number 7, physical health. Beyond all the other ways in which trees improve air quality and the environment, much to the benefit of our health, they also encourage people to go outside. Number 8, privacy. A simple point is that trees provide privacy. Economics. Number 9, the total economic benefit of urban trees is hard to calculate. There are costs, of course, including the repair of infrastructure damaged by roots and maintaining the trees themselves, but the total economic benefit outweighs the expenditure. Number 10, wildlife. Trees are miniature cities, all of their own, serving as a habitat for hundreds of different species. Number 11, light pollution. Trees don't only block the light shining down, they also disrupt the light shining up.
Thank you, Jim. That concludes your available time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Nino Amato of Oak Creek Trail, to be followed by Bhavani. Oh, Nino. Is there a Bhavani? Of Whitaker Road, to be followed by John McGill.
Good evening. First off, thanks for the opportunity to address you guys, and please forgive me if I make any grammar mistakes because this is not my first language. So I'm a German fluent speaker, so Sorry for that. I have to echo all my four people who have come before me. I'm also opposing the bike path because of the biodiversity that is going to be sacrificed. My daughter and I pulled garlic mustard and enjoyed grounding by the trees. She has even had her own project after reading the book The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wohlleben, a German, well-known German environmentalist and forest ranger, I think is the right expression here, which describes the communication of trees. They actually communicate, help other trees survive, make them aware that there are dangers out there. It's amazing. I didn't even know that. So when she read that book, I was all into trees, and we spent a lot of time outside, especially during COVID, and I realized how much we missed nature because we were just running from one thing to another thing, and we really did not spend much time outside. COVID helped us with that, which is a good nice side effect of that. But my daughter has grown up to become a really smart young woman, and she has been very adamant about helping trees and helping nature. And I want to help her in that thing because I'm not going to be around too much longer than she is, obviously. So the more and more we lose green spaces, we lose the biodiversity and the chance for kids and adults alike to sit in front of, instead of sitting in front of screens, to connect with our Mother Nature, who we need to live. My daughter said that half our lungs hang on those branches, people. And that got my attention as well. In many studies, it is shown, after I've done some research, that mental illness will increase the more and more we eradicate nature. And we can see it with water. There's so much pollution already going on with that. So please, please, I beg of you, help us to save a little bit of more green for a little time longer. And the life balance and enhancement mostly is available through nature and the fauna and flora, mainly trees. And then there's tree bathing. You people probably we all know, right? It's Shinrin-yoku, has always been a very sought after activity. Lastly,
Thank you, Bhavani. That concludes your available time. Thank you.
We all can agree that we want Madison to be good.
Okay, next is John McGill of South Highlands Drive, to be followed by Dan Steyer. Is Dan here now?
May I ask a question before my time starts? I wanted to talk on two separate items tonight.
3 minutes total.
3 minutes?
3
total.
minutes, yeah.
Okay. My name is John McGill. I live in the Highlands. We've owned our property for 70 years, since the time it was in the town of Middleton, but long before Madison annexed anything. At that time, Old Sauk Road was a 2-lane dirt gravel road. I oppose the change in districting of the South Highlands, not because of its historical value, which I do appreciate and do value, but our roads are barely adequate to handle the traffic that exists now. They are dangerous, they are narrow, and increasing the density of habitation in there, I think would greatly increase risk to the citizens, to children walking in there to school, to bikers who use the bike path and who use South Highlands Avenue to avoid the big hill in front of Crestwood School. That said, I live on the west side of the Cooper Lane bike path. I own the property all the way from Old Sauk Road to South Highlands Avenue. Any extension of the Appalachian Trail would not just go by my property, it would go through my property. Nobody has talked to me. Nobody from the Planning Commission staff has ever addressed whether I'm interested in this or not. It mentions a proposed redevelopment of the area. We certainly have not proposed it. Our neighbors have certainly not proposed it. And so I'm wondering where the term proposed redevelopment even came from. Furthermore, on the Cooper Lane bike path, you have just a little over 40-foot right-of-way. That is not adequate to, as they state in the document that was prepared for you, adequate to provide a road between Old Sauk Road and South Highlands alongside the Cooper Lane bike path. It cannot be done. The bike path is a major wildlife corridor. It is used by large numbers of people. It is used by the Madison Memorial track and cross-country teams as a safe place to run and practice as they come down the bike path. So anyway, any discussion of changing that into a road, I think, is a serious mistake. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there Dan Steyer? No, sorry. Okay, Barry Pace is next of North Highlands Avenue, to be followed by Ginny White.
When you're done.
Thanks. I just have a couple of brief comments. I live on North Highlands Avenue. I'm not in favor of the rezoning, and you've heard many good comments, but I'm thinking of it in a broader sense from the overall benefit to the city of Madison. I know the city has many goals. I appreciate how difficult your job could be. One of the goals under the heading of sustainability is to maintain, improve, expand our park system. We're lucky as a city. We have a wonderful park system. Similarly with the tree canopy, under the sustainability objectives, there are goals to improve, sustain, expand our tree canopy in the city. Well, the Highlands offers both of those. The Highlands supports both of those goals. And certainly if you've been to the Highlands, you know it is not a core traffic area. It's a very low traffic area. Increasing the density in the Highlands, frankly, isn't going to do much for the other very important goal, which is many people want to move to our city. They need places to live, and that certainly is to be respected. It's a critical goal for this great city that we live in. But there are other goals, competing goals, that I just mentioned a moment ago. The other, and the only other comment I want to make is, to my knowledge, and I could be wrong, but to my knowledge, the Highlands is the only neighborhood with a TRR zoning. It's unique. It's historic. It's not going to do much for the density goals, but it's going to work against the tree canopy goals. It's going to work against our sustainability goals when it comes to parks. As you've heard, many people use it as if it were a park. We have 3 parks. I don't know if you know that, but we have 3 parks within the Highlands. And the Highlands was designed to be an extension of those parks. So many things to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry.
Next is Ginny White of Oak Creek Trail, to be followed by Amidio Greco.
Good evening. I'm here in opposition to a bike path in the Sauk Creek Greenway. I'm a longtime resident of Madison who, until about 2 years ago, lived on autopilot. I assumed that what was happening around me in the city was going to be acceptable. But I've been spending a lot of time now getting familiar with city operations, something I probably should have done 50 years ago. I've written letters online to commissions. This is my first time actually observing a commission. 50 years or so I've lived here. And so I'm still learning things about the process. And I wanted to pose a question that was said much earlier, asking about it's sort of the process or the procedure. And you were already asked this question: how many of you have actually visited the Sauk Creek Greenway? For us, that's an extremely consequential decision on whether or not the West Area Plan should have a bike path in that 26-acre greenway that is a unique ecosystem. The other question I had is that I've written a lot of letters to you online. I've had letters published in the Wisconsin State Journal on the op-ed page. I've attended some meetings, but I'm wondering, do you actually get a chance to read all those letters that come into the commission? I know a lot of you are volunteers, but that's what I would hope you would be able to do as a citizen who is very concerned about this particular decision, that you actually can read all the letters. Or do you have staff that, no? Liddell, no?
No staff, yeah.
No, everybody, those letters go into everybody's mailbox. And everybody tries to get them read before making consequential decisions. Right? Okay, I feel a little bit better about that. Everybody else who has spoken in opposition to the Greenway has said things more elegantly, more eloquently than I have. I just wanted to speak from the heart, tell you that I'm trying to be a good citizen. I'm trying to be supportive of the commissions that represent me and be more knowledgeable about how the process works. And so I thank you for volunteering. I know it's a big job. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
Okay. Our last registered speaker is Amedio Greco of South Highlands Avenue.
I'm Amedio Greco. I live in the Highlands. I've lived there for about 20 years. And I guess I have a question for everybody on the commission. First of all, I want to thank the people I talked to today. They were very helpful. I know it's a busy day. I learned a lot. So I wanted to thank you in the beginning. But I'm just sitting here and I could only think of one question. The one question is this, and it's why. Why would anyone want to destroy the character of the Highlands? That's what we're talking about, the character of the Highlands. As far as I know, there's no other place like it. It's like a park. People come there from all over the city, I think, particularly in the spring, to walk around. I tell people it's like living in Minocqua. Who would guess you're living in a city of 200,000 people? Our character will be destroyed by this. And there's no need for that. That's the first point. The second point involves highways. Highways, sidewalks. As I understand it, the commission will follow or wants to follow a policy of installing sidewalks. That's part of what makes the character of the Highlands. As far as I know, people have not been injured. I'll look into it. I'm going to call up the Department of Transportation. If people have not been injured, then what's the purpose? That's going to take away our character. For what? You're going to waste money on something we don't need? I mean, where's the need for this? Your history, your policy? Someone told me people at Spring Harbor were very happy to get their sidewalk, which is good. We're not Spring Harbor. We have about 95 houses. As far as I know, no one from the commission has ever spoken to any of us asking us what we think of sidewalks. And that's inexplicable. It's our property. You want to put something on our property that we don't need. So, I don't want to talk anymore, other than when you make your decisions, I think you have to answer, why are we going to destroy the character of the Highlands? Why are we going to spend tens of thousands of dollars on sidewalks when the residents don't want them? And then I think you can make your decision. But I think you got to answer the question of why. Thank you.
Thank you, Amedio. So next, I would like to ask commissioners if you have questions of any of our registrants. I don't see anybody so indicating. I do have one question myself of Andrew Bent. Andrew? I'm wondering, several people have spoken of the historical character, and we have several local historic districts in the city. What has been done toward designating the Highlands as a local historic district? I mean, why isn't it?
It's a great question, and that's one of the things our neighborhood is very happy to work with the city staff on. I spoke with Linda Horvath and Ben, I'm going to mess up his last name, who suggested we speak with Heather Riley, I believe, is it? Did I say that correctly? Bailey, I'm sorry, Heather Bailey, and that we pursue this. So apparently the Landmarks Commission already has the Highlands on there, a short list of this is things we ought to be getting to. So this point is a good point you raised, and apparently it's already on the minds of city staff, and we'd be more than happy to work with them on that. The trick is that it's not architectural preservation, it's land character, it's landscape architecture preservation. So it's a little bit different than, there are historic houses, a number of historic houses in the Highlands. The focus is really on preserving the large lot sizes and the
And
landscaping.
that is one thing that it can be done based upon that kind of thing.
That's fantastic.
And it would take residents, city staff are not going to do it. It would take residents to do it. So I would encourage you, since that is something that was mentioned by a number of people, that you do go ahead and pursue if that's something that you care about. So
I think we're likely to, although we can't do it without the zoning that preserves the large lot sizes. Otherwise, the historic character is lost.
it can be done without the zoning remaining as it is. So just as a point of information, so, yeah.
We're aware of accessory dwelling units and of ways of tucking in additional housing, but we're saying that a blanket policy that establishes a 0.18
That answers my questions, and I do encourage you to go ahead and explore that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You.
Any other questions before I?
Any questions of any of the other registrants? Okay, and I don't think we have to close it because it's not really a regular public hearing. Okay, so then we will move on, and next on our agenda is the sustainability plan update. So do you want to introduce yourself to everybody and then get into it?
Yes, absolutely. So hello, everyone. I'm Jessica Price. I'm the Sustainability and Resilience Manager here at the City of Madison. I see some familiar faces and some new faces, so thank you so much for inviting us to speak with you tonight. I'm joined by Greg May, who's our Sustainability Program Coordinator, one of our Sustainability Program Coordinators, and co-lead for this initiative to update the City of Madison's Sustainability Plan. I just want to do a quick time check, Chair Zellers. How long would you like me to? I can be a presentation goldfish. I'll take up the space I'm given.
45 minutes.
45 minutes,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So as some of you might be aware that the City of Madison's last sustainability plan was adopted in 2011. And so now we're taking the opportunity to update that plan so it's current with, it reflects the accomplishments that we've made as well as our direction going forward. So tonight I just want to share with you some of our, the updates about our process and get your feedback on where we are right now. So this diagram is really small in this format, but it's really here to illustrate that we're in the middle of what we're calling a 5-phase process. Those first 3 phases were to develop the draft goals and actions that were shared on the agenda tonight. So back in 2019, the Sustainable Madison Committee took it upon themselves to start the conversation about this decadal update of our sustainability plan, and they are really responsible for getting in this draft that we have before us tonight, and that's the draft that we as sustainability staff have taken out to the community to get a lot of community input on. So in the first phase, you'll see that first circle on the far left. That was all within the Sustainable Madison Committee. In phase 2, that initial draft went out to staff members as well as local experts and others. The committee interfaced with a lot of different folks to make sure that it was reflective of what staff are doing right now, what are the things we've accomplished, what we want to do moving forward. And then all of that input got integrated into developing draft 2. And again, that's what the draft that is attached to the agenda. That is a draft that we've been leading a process to get public input on. We're doing a lot of engagement there. So I'll walk you through a couple of the things that we've done to get input and to improve draft 2. So the first is a gap analysis. So the gap analysis is really making sure that we're looking across similar communities that have sustainability plans and climate action plans to really say, what do we know that we don't know? What are things that are in these plans that we can learn from, whether it's how the plan is structured, how it communicates things, or if there are goals and actions that these other communities are highlighting in their plans that would be appropriate for us to adapt for Madison and include in our plan. So we chose 5 communities. You'll see some of those are close to home and have a lot of similarities with Madison, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Milwaukee, for example, Austin, Texas, Richmond, Virginia, and I would say Austin and Los Angeles are these 2 examples of bigger cities that have some really innovative climate action or sustainability plans that we wanted to look to say, what are the leaders doing, right? They're bigger than us. They're going to have bigger budgets than us. They have different challenges than we do, but I think there's a lot we can learn from them. So that gap analysis is currently underway. So we are working with 2 consultants right now as part of this process. So our consultants are working through this gap analysis, and we'll be getting the results of that to see what are the major takeaways from that. They're also helping us lead this community engagement. The purposes of our community engagement, there's several different purposes. Some of them are to get the word out and build excitement and momentum that we are updating this plan and to let folks know that we're doing it. We're really trying to gather the community's vision and really lead an inclusive process. So we're hearing from a lot of folks about, what do you think Madison can lead on? What do you think are the biggest sustainability challenges we have? What do you think are priorities? And so those are some of the questions that we've been asking along the way. And we're really trying to make sure that we are being able to communicate the positive impacts that Madison can make within our wheelhouse. So we as a city, through the levers that we have, how can we advance sustainability and climate action? And that's a really important way to remember that we're trying to ground this updated plan. The plan from 2011 had goals and actions that other entities would take. So the school district would do this, or businesses will do that. And this plan is really focused on what the city of Madison can do, what is within our wheelhouse to be taking action on. So we have a sort of a 3-pronged approach. So we've been having these stakeholder conversations, which are really, those are more like focus groups. So some of you have participated in some of those focus groups, and that's kind of the inspiration for the conversation we want to lead you through this evening. We've been having some pop-up events. Those have closed now that the weather has turned cold, but we had some really great experiences having sort of a tabling event where we go out into the community and talk with folks that are at the farmers market or at the Science on the Square event. And then we had this community-wide survey that just closed in mid-November. And that community-wide survey was available in 4 languages. It was open for 2 months, I think. And we got, and I'll give you a little bit more information about the responses we got there. So we also backed all of this up with a lot of physical and digital marketing materials, so folks would know that this is happening. So we distributed to many, many partners, many partner organizations, our alders, anyone who would accept it, pretty much, our marketing toolkit to say, hey, please share this on your blogs, on your social, put flyers up in your neighborhood or your coffee shop to let folks know this update is happening and really to drive people to that survey. We also had yard signs, stickers, flyers, social media examples, postcards. And we're really excited about the response that we got from this survey. So we had over 1,600 folks take the survey. Most of those survey responses were in English, but we did have responses to the Chinese and Spanish versions as well. We had over 600 people participate at our pop-up events, at our activities there. And we had more than 60 people participate in our focus groups too. Oops, sorry. So this is just kind of an idea of the reach of that public engagement that we got just to inform this draft. And of course, this isn't the last time we want to be able to hear from people, right? But this is really to get all of those good ideas that will go into an updated draft of the plan. So our community survey asked some specific, had some open-ended questions, and it had some more specific, like ranking questions. And so some of our open-ended questions will just give you an idea of what we're hearing. Some of the, we're still working to get the responses to the Spanish and Chinese language responses of the survey translated. So this is not going to be, and we're still analyzing all of those results. So this is not going to be a full report out of what the survey responses tell us, but this is sort of a very high level what we're kind of hearing about. And so, you know, you can sort of see that some things are popping here. Green, energy, transportation, lakes. We heard a lot from folks around these really big topics. And then we heard some more specific things about what sustainability and what a green Madison means to people. And the good news is there's a lot of these topics are covered in our draft already. At our pop-up events, we had 2 of those. One was the Farmers Market on the Square. That was in October, beginning of October. And then later in October, we were at the Wisconsin Science Festival. We had a pom-pom exercise, and by pom-poms, I mean, they're like, you might have seen them in children's craft boxes. They're these like little floofy balls. And everybody who came to participate in our activity was able to kind of let us know the sustainability topics, these chapter topics that we have the plan organized in right now, which of those topics is like most resonates with you. And so this is some of our early results from those exercises. And so we'll see that there was consistency. There was a lot of consistency across the 2 different activities. We saw that quality, affordable, and sustainable housing really resonates with folks in our community. That's something they feel very strongly about. That's really important to their lives. Clean, abundant water came in, pretty consistent as in one of our top 3, and then sustainable transportation. And interestingly, the 1 and 2, housing and transportation, or buildings and vehicles, are 2 of our top sources of greenhouse gas emissions in our city. And so part of what this tells me is this is really clear that people are really engaged and people are really on board with this, tackling those sources of emissions and making sure that those are benefiting in the ways of having sustainable transportation and quality, affordable housing. So you see, those are the kind of votes with their pom-poms that people kind of let us know what is resonating most with them on that particular day in their personal lives. The other things that we kind of learned from this are that, we try to be really clear, people said, this is really hard. This is a hard thing for us to do, to think about and prioritize. But it's useful for us to really be able to see like where people feel most engaged already and where they might feel less engaged right now, and helps us understand where we might want to be communicating more and engaging with people more about the work that we're doing as a city for some of these topics that may not have resonated so strongly with folks. So our stakeholder conversations, we had 6 of those. So we had we had a focus group with city staff, climate and sustainability leaders, local businesses and institutions, community-based organizations that were outside of the environmental space as part of their core mission, youth and alders. And so within each of these, we had several great activities to hear from folks about where Madison can lead, what are potentially some of the barriers, how can their groups engage, and how can the city better engage with these groups of folks to really leverage that partnership and collaboration to achieve the goals in the plan. And so that leads us to today's activity. But before I start that, I want to pause, ask for questions, comments, feedback.
Any questions for Jessica?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
Okay, take it away.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. So we have lost some of our posters. The poster that was over here, the way that we kind of structure these and the way that I like to do meetings, which might not be how Plan Commission usually does their meetings, I like to get people to get up and move around a little bit. And one of the nice ways about an activity like this is that we can hear from all of you kind of at once, and then we can discuss things that arise from the conversation. So what we have are these kind of like 3 posters around the room. The first is asking to think about and to hear from you as folks that are deeply engaged in planning at the city. What do you think are the biggest opportunities for us as a city to lead on climate action and sustainability? So this is you as like members of this body, but also you as residents who are engaged in this way and engaged in your personal lives. So I gave everybody some Post-its. And so you are welcome to put those opportunities on your Post-its and put as many up there as you'd like.
Okay, I would like to keep this limited time
Absolutely.
because of so many other things that we have to do. So maybe people could write down 2 items and put those up, and then we can move on.
That's perfect.
Okay.
That's great. And these are anonymous. If you have a suggestion that you want follow up with, just put your name on there and we'll reach back out to you. Because I'd love
And
to.
I've got a bunch of things, so I'll meet with you offline then.
Absolutely. Oh, she said you all could have 2 Post-its, but she's like, I'm gonna give you. Yes. So.
And anybody else is free to reach out to
Absolutely, I
her.
have Post-its all over. So that's the first one, and maybe I'll just introduce them all at once. So you can kind of think about this, do your writing, and then put them on your posters. So the first is about our biggest opportunities. In other focus groups, we also asked what are our biggest challenges. I did not put that explicitly here because I need you to be more creative than capacity and funding. Capacity and funding are challenges that we have across the board with everything we do. But if there are particular barriers or challenges to growing our climate resilience, to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, to achieving any of these other goals that you really want to communicate with us, please, please do. I don't want to limit you if you really want to have that, but capacity and funding, we know we need more people and we need more money, always. The second question is, what do you see as the role of the Plan Commission, if any, in helping to move the city toward accomplishing these goals? So knowing the work that you do, knowing the kinds of initiatives that you're engaged in and decision-making you're engaged in at the city, would love to hear from you how we engage you in achieving these goals. And then the last one is a prioritization exercise, which I will save until after we're done with our Post-its. So let's do 5 minutes on Post-its. I'll set a timer. Or can you set a timer if you're already in your timer mode?
So we've kind of lost this. We lost this one here. So I'm gonna go and grab.
Thank you. Oh, I have tape.
I'm gonna put it back up.
Yes, please.
Or I put it over here. Like.
Okay, that works too.
It's funny. Oh, that's okay. We were. You're supposed to put them up there. O-M-I-S-S-I-O-N, right? Omission. O-M-I-S-S-I-O-N.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. Give me up.
Okay, so the one on the right-hand side of the room is biggest opportunities, and then role of Plan Commission is the one over here.
Did you have anything going in that direction?
I do have something.
You want me to take it?
Yeah. Thanks.
Did you have anything going in that direction?
Right at the hour.
Oh.
You're doing great. It was the wrong hour. It was a different hour than I told you.
Excuse me. Use my chair.
Oh, I'm sort of staggering. That's okay. Guess I gotta come up with another.
You're coming this way anyway.
I think so.
Keith is coming.
Oh.
The only thing I can think of is all those green buildings.
Yeah, I could have said something wishy-washy like that.
You know,
Stress
solar panels. Yeah, I saw a message from him earlier asking me if the time was okay, and it was. They added something else to my calendar, but I was going to be late to the other meeting because his calendar is also packed. But then, is this on?
It is. Everyone can hear you right now.
But maybe it's in the recording.
Okay, so
If so, I say, Colin, I love your holiday outfit. I just want to make sure that gets recorded.
I've spent some time up there.
And when I drive to go pick her up at night, it's like a video game.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there's a dog. Oh, there's another car. It's terrifying.
Let's see.
As well.
I'm scared I'm gonna kill somebody.
I'll get fed by Plan Commission.
Okay, we're about at the 1 minute mark.
Okay.
For there might be some flexibility.
You can,
Skills.
Liddell's
We'll be here
still
for a little
ready,
bit longer, so
Yeah.
Make it some extra time.
comes to you later.
That's right. Yes. If you have a dog walking thought later, you're like, oh, I should have put it on a Post-it. Like, just shoot us an email.
I haven't even.
Okay. So is that everyone's got their Post-its up?
Yeah.
Perfect.
So many Post-it notes. They don't need mine. The biggest.
So
Sneak it up later.
there are some trends that I'm noticing in kind of priorities, not surprising around Plan Commission and thinking about land use and transportation. So there's several Post-its here around transportation. The city being a leader in our own buildings, so making sure that what we're building green buildings, we're building net zero buildings, we're using renewable energy. So this is really, I like to think about this as us as a business, us as our operations, leading by example. If we're asking our community to be green, we need to be doing that same thing and walking the walk. So I see that a lot of those trends here. I'm wondering if anybody wants to share out anything that they put on here or raise a point for discussion.
The only thing that I would mention is I have seen too many plans made, wonderful plans, and then not executed. So my thing is, having the items on it clearly measurable goals articulated well, a path forward, and responsibility laid out so that there's a greater possibility or opportunity to achieve what is desired. So that would be one thing. And I think that is the way the city really can lead on sustainability.
That's a great piece of feedback. And one of the things that we're moving toward in this plan that'll be a little bit of an upgrade from the 2011 plan is being really explicit so that every goal has a metric so that we can know where we are now and are we moving toward that goal. Some of them will be qualitative and some of them will be quantitative, but you'll see that among every goal, the actions to get there, I should say, those are flexible. So these goals are what we want to be accomplishing and how we're going to measure success and progress along the way. The actions, these are our best routes for accomplishing these goals right now. 2 years from now, 5 years from now, there might be new technology, there might be new opportunities that can help us achieve those goals that'll ladder up. And just because they're not in a plan doesn't mean they might not be our best idea right now, right? So we do want to build in that flexibility. So that's why we're having those metrics at the goal level of what we need to be doing.
Jessica, can I ask a question that isn't answering your question? I probably should have asked it earlier, but it kind of relates.
And this can be slightly informal.
Okay,
given this.
I read, I can't remember where in the materials that the sustainability plan really, the comp plan helps to inform the sustainability plan, but in my mind, it should be the other way around. I know that, we only update the plan every 10 years, and
Well, not on purpose, but
we certainly don't want to go through another exercise like we just finished. But can you clarify that? Like, why do we think of it that way?
that's a great question. And I'll add a little bit more context to what is in the draft right now as well. Is I think there's a give and take between what is in different plans and how all of that works out. And we don't want to get caught in this endless planning loop, but we want to get to the doing. So what you have right now and what we'll have in the final kind of version that everyone will get to see, we will crosswalk what's in here that's pulled from other plans. So this isn't cut whole cloth. This isn't all just brand new stuff. This is capturing what is in plans we have already. So it pulls from the comprehensive plan. It pulls from Vision Zero. It pulls from the Parks and Open Space Plan. This is one of the starting points from the Sustainable Madison Committee that they looked across these different plans and says, which of these are about sustainability and are helping us achieve sustainability goals? The comp plan has an obvious chapter on sustainability, but there's other pieces that are really important. And one of the things that they wanted this plan to be able to do was when someone says, what is the city of Madison doing about sustainability? You have one place to look at it, and it's very clear which of those goals and actions are captured in other plans already. Some of the stuff in here is new, and some of the stuff is pulled from other plans so that it's clearly making that connection of how those other plans are also advancing sustainability.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah.
I think it's I do think it's some give and take, right? So when we do update the comprehensive plan, we'll have something really great to look at and say, oh, what else needs to go in there?
That makes sense. Thanks.
So on that note about what is the city of Madison doing, I mean, things have changed the past 2.5 years, but I remember at the beginning when I first started as an elder, when I hear what is the city of Madison doing, I thought we're talking about the city of Madison, but it really was just reflecting what does the city agency or the the business that you call it was doing. And that was a bit disappointing because it's like, okay, then there's more than updating these buildings and like how does that transfer into the community? So for me, kind of would be very important to really those questions. Like I get to have goals and having them defined, but what is our purview on this? How restrained are we by statutes or other ordinances? What new ordinances can you make to actually move us from the city agency or building or business into the community, into the actual city of Madison? And that to me is not clear. I mean, maybe I just not, whatever, it's like not clear for me. How can I, as a commissioner or as an individual, as an elder, can help push that envelope to create those policies that we can enforce in new developments and things like that? Like, I don't have a clear picture of that.
Yeah, that's a point that is very well taken, partly because some of these issues can be so different. So what the city can do, to advance green buildings community-wide, for example, there's a whole set of state statutes that give us more or less flexibility to do that kind of thing. And similar for water, for example, also highly regulated and is very cross-boundary. And so that's, I think, something that we'll continue to wrestle with. I don't have any sort of easy answers for that. But I think that having the goal articulated helps us say, we have some good ideas in our actions. And then what are the other strategies we can be pursuing for this, right? If we have that goal as sort of what we're trying to get to in our North Star, then that says, okay, well, let's look and say, what are the tools in our toolbox? And so the actions that are in there right now reflect the tools that we have in our toolbox. And then sometimes it says we need to explore more in this area to really understand and how we can, push that forward with perhaps a novel approach that no one has thought of yet.
I think that's a super, super good question. And one thing that we did in Plan Commission was the bird glass. We had a special meeting that talked about that and encouraged the alders then, because the alders have to introduce, to do the legislation. But I think that there could be more things like that the Plan Commission could learn about and help push forward. Maybe, the extra stories, if it is, something similar to that, if it is super sustainable, like super sustainable meaning geothermal and a certain array of, anyway, so I think that's a really good point and question.
Yeah, and I appreciate what you're saying about having the North Star and having some guidelines and the goals, but I feel like, again, with something what is just been described, it has to be both, and we need to be really educated on what our constraints are, because the expectations are always out of touch with the reality, and the sooner we understand our constraints, then the easier it is for us to find different paths and trying to build the toolbox that we may need to get around the many constraints that the state put on us. So yeah, I think that if I had those tools, I would probably be a way better commissioner, but I don't have that level of knowledge in this particular topic about what the restrictions are.
Yeah, and I will say that to your point, getting some of this done requires leadership and champions, right? And so if there are areas that individuals, alders, plan commission, different boards, committees, or commissions in the city feel like they can do that, play that leadership role in advancing some of those strategies, I think this lays bare a lot of those opportunities. And we're, sustainability staff, we're a small but mighty team, but we are more than happy to collaborate and help do the legwork. And whether that's looking at different policies or looking at what's working in other cities or connecting with folks in our community that are, experts in something, we're happy to play that role.
Thank you.
And I think that was a great transition to our next question. If anyone wants to speak more to what they see as the Plan Commission's role, if any, and I'm seeing that maybe if any is yes, since we have some Post-its up here, in helping to move this forward. Anybody want to share any thoughts or points of discussion or questions on your answers there?
A very simple one, like having the changes that Transportation Commission made on their new board and really prioritizing having the connectivity. Like we have a person from transportation here, and we have someone over there in Public Works to just really have people in the boards that actually make connected dots when we're working on projects, right? So today we have all these people talking about a bike path, and that is going to go to the Transportation Commission, and is here for us to discuss it. But how does that connect with, how do we stay in sync? Like, again, the perception and understanding maybe how the city works, which is very difficult how the city works. It's not a simple task, but I feel like my perception personally has changed over the past 3 years on how the city does really try to work together. They're not, their silos still exist, but they are more connectivity than people really sees, on the outside. And just this board is an example of that. So from the board perspective, ensuring that the board has a strong connections to other agencies within the city, that's a way that we can help, including sustainability.
Anybody else want to?
I guess I'm thinking maybe more along the lines of what Liddell was saying about bird glass, and that we can be the kind of starting point working with staff on many analogous efforts related to, I guess, development approvals and standards and things related to sustainability. And I don't know, I assume it helps staff to bounce those things off of us like we do at these meetings. But I think our job is often to do the legwork with the help of staff for alders who aren't on Plan Commission and don't have time to digest all this. And I think that that's something Plan Commission should do more of, is work on those sustainability efforts. And it's not that they're going to sail through. Some of them are controversial. Energy auditing and things like that. They can be. For example, they can be complicated, but I think we should do that work and work with you all and other staff.
Yeah, that was the approach that I took too. Is that Plan Commission's role is to really sort of encode the sustainability parts into, zoning and development practice. And we try to just do things like strongly suggest things like solar panels. And I know that there are changes now with electric cars.
Oh, EVs.
Yeah, EV charging stations now, that has come on, and maybe moving from strongly suggesting into, requirements. But I feel like our job is to move from goals into code, and to shepherd that along.
Yeah. So in an early conversation, Chair Zellers and I exchanged a couple of emails about some of the, where do we think that Plan Commission and these goals and actions are happening? And we made a list, which I was going to sort of share up here, but I realized that's so small that it's pretty useless in looking at the document. But if you have it in front of you, and I can share the list back out with everybody, but just to spark some ideas, goal 5 around facilitating compact transit-oriented development. That's seems pretty in your wheelhouse. Some actions in goal 6 around increasing resilience to climate change impacts, including heat waves, storms, and flooding. This is a place that we can really sort of start to grow in and really integrate more into our planning efforts as a city, and then also bringing this up with the folks who are bringing plans and developments. Goal 10 around reducing greenhouse gas emissions from vehicles community-wide. This is the vehicle charging infrastructure piece here. And then we have goal 17, which is healthy ecosystems. And really thinking about how planning, zoning, and management policies and practices can play a role in that urban landscape. So those are just some places, and I can send it back out. I can highlight those for everyone. But when you get that and you say, "Oh, here's another place I think that we could partner and lead and learn more," would love to hear those as well.
And I would just note that goal 5.2 and 5.3, you might notice, have been pretty much accomplished in terms of what the Plan Commission would be doing toward those.
Yes, so this draft was from early this year, and then we started bringing on our contractors and our engagement process. So we are making sustainability achievements even along the way from what was in the plan. Okay, I have one last activity. And huge shout out to Greg for making this work, because I forgot some of the things we needed. So on these two posters over here, we have the goals, and we have our goals laid out. And this is sort of thinking about, I have a former colleague that would say, we can do everything, we just can't do it all at once. And so thinking about short-term, medium-term, and long-term priorities, or things that you think are kind of the most urgent, or that we already have a lot of momentum on. Those are your green dots. Your medium-term priorities are your yellow dots, and then your longer-term priorities are your orange dots. And I know that these are hard choices, But really thinking
3 dots, I don't think so.
3 dots only. No. You're ready to go.
I love it.
So yeah, if you want to let us know kind of what you think are short, medium, and long-term priorities from your perspective, wearing all of your hats. So wearing all of your hats as members of the Plan Commission and residents, sort of what do you think are the issues that are most urgent for us to be about?
Jessica's.
And none of this is going to fall off the table. So we're not going to stop working on any of these things, I promise.
Can you double check that sustainable transportation didn't get flipped like it was in the past?
Yes, it did get corrected.
Great. It's a dark corner, I guess.
I know, well, the better than the last dark corner we had at a meeting,
Yeah.
right? Because you don't have lighting whatsoever.
That's fair. That's right. That's so true. I laugh too because Ben tore a hole in our plan, so we're starting beef now.
Collapsing on our heads over here.
Yeah, come to his meeting and tear a hole in something.
I think whichever one he tore out was already in the comp plan, so it's covered.
Oh yeah, he was yeah. It was his way of voting. Actually, the hole's in a perfectly innocuous place.
Somebody else.
Well, that would be fun.
No.
So do you have any travel plans for the holidays?
We're going to sunny Indiana.
Oh, it's a little bit south of here.
Both of our parents.
Yes. Good. How about you? None, thank God. Yeah. Might go to like Monroe or something, but no travel. It's good. Duty travel.
Are you liking your job? Have you been at any of the
I like it,
meetings about
and
the
actually we're wrapping up the emergency rental assistance portion. It's
thing?
the treasury's out of money, the
That was on-
states
in it yesterday.
spent their money. And
Did you know the one?
I think I'm gonna start working on the
There were 2 yesterday. It was pretty good.
Okay. So just some quick observations
Developing
here.
money, the
Is
development.
a lot of our green dots, these like these shorter term things we already have momentum on, are in our affordable housing, city design and infrastructure. So around housing and transportation, transit-oriented development, reducing greenhouse gas emissions from vehicles. That is, and maybe I biased the group by showing you what the results were for some of our community exercises, but this is an agreement with some of the things that we hear from residents as well. So there's alignment there in what people think are some of the most urgent things for us to be working on. And I'll point out that this is the sustainability piece of those things, right? So we know that housing and transportation are really important things that our city needs to be doing anyway. But what we're hearing from folks is that doing that in a way that is climate friendly and sustainable is a priority for our community. And that gives me a lot of hope, right? Some of the other things that we think are really long-term are around our economy, are around renewable energy and decarbonization. Those things take time for us to be able to do, but we are on track to be able to do them. So I won't belabor this too much, but I want to just open this up one more time for you all to, talk about your choices, give us any insights or things you need to know. We need to know from you about kind of long-term, short-term priorities, that what you see in this plan already.
Comments from anybody?
I have a question. My first reaction was when reading through the goals and strategies and things, because I'm focused on housing a lot. I'm thinking, where is increasing housing density in here? I mean, it's not under the affordable housing component. So I'm like, I want a big bullet for that, and I think it's buried in there. But I'm wondering if it could be more explicit. It doesn't have to be the word density, but increasing housing opportunities, et cetera.
Yeah, I do think that it is, it's not spelled out so explicitly right now, so that's really good feedback to have. I would say that a couple of the places that it appears, and I think folks might have highlighted actually, this is the transit-oriented development piece. That's kind of where it's living right now, but let's talk more about if you think it's captured well there, or if you think there needs to be some additional language.
I guess I'm thinking, I recognize that, you're right, but I feel like that's only a small portion of the city. And so but just a thought.
It's a great thought. Thank you.
Related to that, I think referencing our projected growth and how we plan for that within the sustainability plan, talking about Plan Commission's role, I think beyond some of the, specific legislation we can look at and things like that, it's really our role in every single thing that we look at and review. We are balancing or prioritizing what can sometimes seem like competing goals. And a big part of what drives, some of the decisions that I personally make is density, and then just thinking about accommodating future households in our community.
That's great. Feedback it lines up with kind of how we communicate that as a sustainability concept. And also important for us to remember these will be embedded within an actual document that'll provide more information and context to folks. And so it's reminding us that it's important to talk about, in addition to some of the sort of more environmental things, we'll probably be talking about what climate change impacts Madison is expecting and things like that. But the population growth and the other sort of changes that we can see on the horizon are important to capture there too. Thank you.
Well, I want to say thank you very much, Jessica. You tried to pack a lot into a short period of time, so thank you very much. I think I'm speaking for all the commissioners when I say that we do think that the whole sustainability effort is extremely important. So we will, I'm sure, be in touch with you. And I know that it's very difficult and sometimes frustrating when we're dealing with things on the Plan Commission when there are sustainability goals we would like to achieve, but we really don't have the tools or abilities because of what we have as standards or criteria. So to the extent we might be able to change those or enhance those, that would be great too. So we should all be kind of thinking about that. So again, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting us to talk with you. We're happy to continue this conversation in whatever way it makes sense for everyone. And if anybody has any written feedback for us on what is in there right now and you want to share that with us, please do send it our way. Or we're happy to schedule meetings, whatever works.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the West and Northeast area plans, progress update, and Plan Commission input on key issues. So take it away, whoever is going to do it first.
Who's going to be?
While they're coming, I just want to note that this effort, the new planning framework, which many of you as plan commissioners helped to shape over the past 18, 24 months, is really all hands on deck as far as the planning division staff is concerned. There are a lot of hairy issues, some of which we'll talk about tonight, but I just want to give a shout out to, of course, yes, the project managers who are here and you'll hear a lot more from, but really it's probably 2/3 of our staff have been involved in shaping these two first plans as the template we can hopefully follow as we move forward. So thank you to everyone.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linda Horvath, she, her pronouns. I work with the Planning Division, and I'm here with my co-manager on the West Area Plan, Ben Zellers. And then we also have Anya La Puerta and Dan McCullough, co-managers of the Northeast Area Plan. So it looks like we lost our, did it unhook, maybe? One moment. So as Heather mentioned, many people have been working on these plans, and you can see our team members are listed specifically for the plans. We have Colin Punt in the audience. He's one of the West Plan team members, and a number of other staff here that have been helping us out with these projects. So that's okay. We did it to you, so you can do it to us. So we want to go over, well, maybe we'll wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute.
Just one more.
There we go. That's all. Sorry, we're out of here.
Sorry to the viewing audience.
Bang.
Okay, so the agenda, as you see it, we're going to touch on the plan framework, which many of us and also some of the commissioners worked on a couple years back. Talk about the West Area Plan update, Northeast Area Plan update, some topics that are common across both area plans, and then talk about our proposal for incorporating the underlying plan actions into these area plans, and then potential plan archiving and retirement. And then, of course, talk with you about some of those discussion topics that are highlighted in the memo that we provided. So the planning framework is our approach as a planning division to cover the whole city with the 12 area plans that you see on the screen. This is an approach that we feel is going to provide us more consistency with planning. It'll allow us to cover, as we say, the whole city. That includes areas of the city that have never had plans. Also allows us to update planning initiatives that are in the underlying plan areas, that the plans are quite old. And we are doing, of course, the Northeast and West first in 2023 into 2024. And then we are beginning the Southeast and Southwest area plans with those teams starting next year. We are guiding physical changes with these plans, so generally land use, transportation, and other topics that the comprehensive plan covers. We are taking about 12 to 18 months with the plans. We're doing increased coordination with other city agencies, like the Park Development Planning Initiative that Parks is doing, stormwater management planning, and other initiatives that the city's working on to try to kind of break down those silos you talked about a little bit earlier and integrate the different processes and initiatives. We're also doing more of an emphasis on reaching underrepresented populations with these plans. So you'll see some, whoops, it's cutting out. Let's see if I, okay. Oh, okay, came back. So hopefully that won't happen again. Let's see, this is not. Okay. So the West Area Plan covers the area you see on the screen between South Midvale Boulevard, Lake Mendota, City of Middleton, and the West Beltline Highway. It's about 5,600 acres, 30,000 people, 27.5% of whom are people of color. We have about 25,000 jobs as well in this area. We've done quite a bit of public engagement. We can always do more, and we will be doing more in January, but since February, we've done a lot of things virtually, in person. We've had a couple open houses, one at Lucier Community Education Center, another at Rennebaum Park. We've had community surveys up. We currently have an art survey up online. We have done business postcards, and we're currently finishing up some calls directly to businesses in the area about what they want to see happen, over the course of the next 10 years. And then we're also working with community partners that we hired to, again, do that deeper dive engagement with people that aren't typically represented in our processes. So we ran a couple focus groups in coordination with those partners recently with the Chinese community, and then some of those areas around Lucier Center and Wexford Ridge areas. And we'll continue to do some of that work coming up in January. We do often receive conflicting feedback. We get a lot of feedback over the course, or we have had a lot over the course of the past year. Plenty of people have said they want to keep the area similar to how it is, with lower density residential, lower rise buildings that you see in this area. A lot of people, though, too, are appreciative of the fact that the city's growing and will continue to grow, and want to see more mixed use and higher rise development. So we're hearing both things in this area. A lot of people want to improve bike path and pedestrian connectivity. Some see the greenways as a potential way to do that, but also other things like protected bike lanes on streets. Some say, as you've heard tonight, that no paths and greenways are they don't want to see that happen. Particularly, folks, tonight we're talking about the Saw Creek Greenway and a path that's been in city plans for about 30 years, showing that connection. We're simply, continuing it in our plan. A lot of people have said more parking, but then a lot of people have said prioritize people and not cars. So we're getting, some conflicting things going on here, and it's our role as planners to deal with that, right? We see what we have here, and then we try to deal with it to some degree in our actions and through work with you and others. Underrepresented groups have highlighted some things like unsafe walking routes. We've talked to students from Memorial High School and Jefferson, or Ezekiel Gillespie Middle School, used to be Jefferson Middle School. People, or the students, walk a lot of times all the way down south of the Beltline, because that's part of that school service area. So they're walking along Gammon Road, right through the West Town area. That can feel unsafe to the students. Particularly, they talked about going through the underpass under the Beltline. It's low lighting. Major intersections, obviously, they're going through those. On-street bike lanes, people highlighted as feeling unsafe, both for the bicyclists and the drivers. People driving along the lanes are feeling, concerned about the bicyclists. Isolation and segregation of affordable housing in the area. People living in the affordable housing are feeling, separate from other parts of the area. And as new affordable housing is built, want to see more integration of that housing. Arts, really the focus we heard in the last month on that is more community art studio space. People see things going on the east side that they really like, Sector 67 and a number of other similar types of places like that. So here is our proposal for generalized future land use. What you see in the black outlined areas are where we're proposing changes to the 2018 comprehensive plan. And you'll see, of course, low-medium residential highlighted in a number of areas there. And that's partly in response to community feedback about wanting more variety of housing choices, but then also just simply, we know we need more housing units, so that allows us to do both of those things more effectively. And that generally looks like, as you see along major streets, served well by public transit. Outlined in pink, you see areas where there are centers of worship currently, and we're proposing, generally those are areas of low residential designation currently. And so we're looking at changing those with the future land use map to a variety of different land use designations, medium residential, community mixed use, neighborhood mixed use, et cetera, to, again, allow for more housing to be built and more mix of uses to occur. So changing these formerly low residential areas will allow a clearer path when and if those property owners would like to redevelop in a way that's consistent, again, with some of the goals we're talking about with the plan. I'm going to hand things off now to Ben, and there you go.
So another element of what we're looking at for these area plans is maximum building height. And so the proposed approach that we're taking right now is to simply map maximum building heights for land uses that don't already have guidance within the comprehensive plan. So for example, low residential, medium residential, all of those have some guidance in the comprehensive plan right now for maximum building heights. Whereas high residential, regional mixed use both refer to area plans or neighborhood development plans, whatever the case might be, for additional guidance, which obviously this will be. And similarly, general commercial employment, no real guidance within the comprehensive plan for maximum building heights. And so what you see on the screen is areas within those four categories, high residential, regional mixed use, et cetera, have maximum building heights shown. And we started with the Odana area plan as the major factor within this. So you can see areas south of Mineral Point Road have a lot of numbers on them, and those are mainly established through the Odana area plan and have been carried forward here. But we are showing some possible increases in maximum building height associated with this west area plan, specifically right up along Mineral Point, south of Mineral Point. A few areas that would go from 12 to 16 floors maximum, some areas that would go from 5 to 8. And some of those increases up to the 8-story maximum are associated with some of the tweaks that were very recently adopted with transit-oriented development, making consistent with that. There are some other areas, certainly in the in and around the Hilldale Mall area, that we also are showing maximum building heights, and then a few other scattered portions where we have regional mixed use land uses or commercial or employment land uses where we're showing maximum building heights as well. Another element we want to talk about are street connections. And again, most of the street connections that we're showing are pulled in from the Odana area plan south of Mineral Point Road, or in the case of over by Hilldale Mall, pulling in recommended connections from the Hill Farms neighborhood plan as well. But there are a few other things to call out within this area, and circling those kind of in that magenta color. One of them is Yosemite Place, which is south of Old Sauk Road. There's a gap in the street network. Spoke with engineering as to what potential reason there might be for that gap, and they were not sure. There is actually already city right-of-way there, but the street simply doesn't connect. So that could be an area to provide more connectivity within this portion of the west area. And then there's a gap in the street between the Middleton-Madison border. That's Middleton Street. It simply ends for 20 feet and then picks up as Middleton Street on the other side. There are a variety of reasons for this in terms of the way the area developed in the past, but we think it would be important to work with the city of Middleton to make that connection. And then there are some other things that were detailed as well. Old Sauk Road. I think this was mentioned by a gentleman testifying earlier today to possibly extend Appalachian Way, but that would really only occur if and when any property owners in that area choose to redevelop. So that would be associated with redevelopment, and if property owners don't want to redevelop, there wouldn't be any streets associated with that. And then finally, the fourth one that we're calling out here is St. Dunstan Drive. That's kind of close to the Middleton border. Right now, it's a one-way street outletting onto University Avenue. And so a possible recommendation to include in the west area is as an adjoining property, St. Dunstan's Church, if that ever redevelops to the north, to consider what the proper street configuration might be for St. Dunstan, whether one-way should be maintained or whether that should potentially be opened up to two-way traffic.
So I had a comment about Yosemite Place that goes over to Yosemite Trail. So if you're looking at this cul-de-sac.
Could you speak into your...
Sorry. So if you're looking at this cul-de-sac and you're looking on the trail, I live on the other side of that trail. And when we moved into that neighborhood, I also asked why that road doesn't connect, because it confuses every delivery driver, and maybe Amazon has figured it out by now. And I was told that they closed that off because the teenagers or reckless drivers, because there's an incline on that path, were like driving recklessly down into the what is now the cul-de-sac, and we're like, if anybody's familiar with the Dukes of Hazzard, were like ramping up their speed and like driving onto Yosemite Place really fast, and they asked the city to close off access to that. That's what I was told.
Okay.
That it was reckless driving. But if nobody at engineering has any record of that, then I don't want to interfere with that connectivity.
And we did speak with engineering staff, and the grade for that connection is similar to street grades elsewhere in this general area. So, I mean, that could be the case, but at the same time, there are similar street grades in other portions.
It doesn't look any, it doesn't seem any, I'll ask around again, but it doesn't look any, I was just told that maybe it was just one troublesome driver, but I was told it was reckless driving.
Okay.
And the grade.
Who is now probably graduated from college and medical school.
They're probably living in the neighborhood with their own teenage drivers, as far as I know. But and that's
minivan.
yeah, and if it's
No speed.
just an interesting story.
Yeah. And then obviously, we've already heard a lot of testimony on the Sauk Creek Greenway here this evening. Just kind of recapping a few things. This is the area within that green boundary is approximately 150-acre block, so that's a pretty substantial size of area without any connections across or through that. Obviously bounded by two parks, Walnut Grove Park, a pretty significant community park, Hain Family Park as well. This has been shown as an important potential link in the city's all ages and abilities bicycle network. And as Linda mentioned, there has been a path shown in city plans going back for over 30 years within the Greenway, including the 2006 Comprehensive Plan and 2018 Comprehensive Plan. And as neighbors certainly here have testified tonight, there's been strong neighbor opposition to shared use path for a variety of reasons that I won't recap. As so many people spoke on them already, but at the same time, there have been general support within the west area for more safe bicycle connections within the planning area. So there's the kind of specific issue within Sauk Creek Greenway and the general support for better and more safe bicycle connections overall. Just wanted to also point out those white arrows on the map are existing kind of public access points into the Greenway. And so there is, in addition to, potential for a path through the Greenway itself, possible connections from the neighborhood into that path if future, detailed design would want to include those. And maybe one additional thing to mention, we've been in, close contact with engineering staff really throughout this process. Obviously, it's a interdisciplinary project. Stormwater management is the main concern for greenways. But as far as tree loss, engineering feels that there's a substantial opportunity to overlap a potential bicycle path with a maintenance path that they would need for maintaining the stormwater channel that has been, kind of becoming a challenge for them to deal with, given the lack of access they have. So just West Area Plan timeline, then I'll turn it over to Northeast folks.
What I would suggest that we might want to do is, rather than go all the way through, is to perhaps take up the West Area Plan discussion points, then hear Northeast Area Plan discussion points, and then loop back to the general ones.
Sure, that sounds fine.
Okay, so are there questions? Let's take the number 7, the road connectivity. Are there questions about that, concerns? Are people, does that sound good to people? Number 7. Okay, I'm seeing a yes, so number 7 is.
That's fine.
Go for it. Okay, number 8, the proactive rezoning.
Yeah, and so that was, obviously what several people testified to this evening, and that includes the discussion of TRR zoning, and then there are some other considerations in there, and so kind of looking for the commission's feedback on all of those elements.
So the TRR zoning is the one that would change the Highlands. And the other ones I mean, that's the main one, really, isn't it?
It's certainly the largest area by far.
Well, let's take that one first.
As well.
That's A. What are any questions on that? What are the general thoughts? I mean, obviously, we aren't voting on this tonight, but planning staff wanted a general impression of where plan commissioners are on that.
I'll just chime in that I am supportive of that change in zoning. Honestly, I found that minimum lot size to be shocking when I read it, 26,000. But in general, I'm not supportive of a zoning district that is very specific to one area of the city. And I agree with the staff comment that there are other more appropriate tools for historic preservation, as Liddell alluded to in her questions, than a zoning district.
I echo that. And I mean, I feel like either B or D is fine, but I'm not sure to, I mean, I don't have a strong feeling about that, but just the historical preservation, there's staff can help with that. I know, like Liddell, so they're not going to do it for them, but they can guide them through that process and get that established. Yeah.
Other thoughts?
Just the fact that there's only one of them doesn't make them, I don't view it as making them historic. I view them as make them inclusive. So I just feel like we shouldn't be doing that for just one area.
Any other comments?
I just, maybe I can ask Heather this question. What are the thresholds for property owners when you're considering a local historic district? Because there's no guarantee that everybody's going to be willing to accept the kind of control that the city will then have over their property, as people think.
I call it historic property protections.
There you go.
I'm Heather Bailey. I'm the preservation planner for the city. For the review of possible historic resources within the West Area Plan, that neighborhood was identified as potentially being a national register or a local district if the neighborhood is interested. Now, having said that, per state statute, there is no requirement, specifically it's prohibited for owner consent for designation as with local historic designation. The decider for the city of Madison for what becomes has historic designation, be it a local historic district or a designated landmark, is Common Council. Someone would have to supply a nomination for why it is a landmark or why it is a historic district and make a case for it. Now, having said that, anytime I talk with interested parties, what I tell them is if you want to proceed with a local historic designation, I highly encourage it be at the behest of the actual property owners. Preservation works best when it is in collaboration with the property owners as opposed to in protest by the property owner. So if they are interested in proceeding with that, very happy to work with them.
Thank you, Heather.
Welcome.
Okay, so my sense is that in general, people are supportive of this change in zoning. Then B, neighborhood mixed use to regional mixed use, the area along University and Whitney.
Or separate.
For more, can you bring that up on the screen?
Sure. What is this? I believe that was a memo attachment.
Under. Yep. Oh, okay.
So it looks like it's page 23, I think.
Or they found it.
So yes, these are lettered to match what's in the memo.
Page 9.
Oh.
What is B?
Page, what page is
That's
it?
page 9. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No, it's this, page 23 is page 9.
Page 9, okay.
Pages don't have pages.
So A, can you just run through them? I mean B, A,
Sure,
the
yes.
ones on there?
B is up at University Avenue, Whitney Way, a triangle-shaped area.
Mixed use.
Currently zoned neighborhood mixed use. We're showing on the map potential proactive rezoning to regional mixed use. This being fairly close to BRT, it seems like a reasonable place for allowing additional intensity by rate.
So basically B and C, similar
Very
kind of.
similar. C might need to look at that in terms of how it fits with the recently completed state office building there and whether or not that would need to be included or potentially left out, which is currently suburban employment. Obviously, that's not going anywhere for a while, but in general, that the bulk of that is the Red Cross site, which is a pretty low-density office building with a substantial amount of surface parking.
I was confused. I definitely think that I will support something like that.
Okay.
Had more density.
Ben, I have a question. RMX doesn't have a maximum number of stories in it, correct?
Well, I think a lot of our zoning districts, the maximum is set by conditional use process, basically. And so I think that would be similar here. But because this is in the TOD overlay area, people would be allowed up to 8 stories by right.
Okay. Yeah, I'm wondering why some of these are capped at 16. We could do even more.
Well, I mean, that's
By
other
conditional
feedback that
use. By conditional use, it could, but if these are in the plan, that would be tougher, right?
Well, I think the maximum building heights that we're showing would need to be, considered and accounted for through the conditional use process. I think maybe Heather has more details about how.
Speak into when you talk, if you could speak in.
So yeah, the maximum building heights that we're showing, I think, would have to be accounted for through a conditional use approval process. But was deferring to Heather as to
Well,
how that
I'll
gets
just add that I think this is an area where we still have a lot of work to do with your input and that of others. So most of our existing sub-area plans, where there are maximum height recommendations, the Plan Commission grapples with that when the conditional use is proposed. One other way to do it, and we do it in our downtown today, is to set maximum heights in the zoning code. And so another way to implement these plans would be to basically set maximum heights in the zoning code in the areas where we're showing maximum heights in the plans as an implementation step after the plan is adopted. So we could do that, and those maximum heights would have more strength, more teeth. Just like the building proposals that you see in the downtown area today.
So could there be heights without certain sustainability features and then heights with certain sustainability features? For
So
example?
we haven't talked through that with the city attorney's office in some time, but we have, with your guidance, implemented for affordable housing, something very similar in the downtown area just earlier this year, and we're seeing folks interested in that. So I think it's a little bit of a different issue that we would need to make sure we had a strong, legal foundation to pursue.
I'd love it if you would take a look at that as a possibility.
So is there a reason why we want maximum heights? I think Patrick was kind of asking that question. Outside of like the state capital area, the airports, why do we care if somebody wants to build a 25-story building to densify an area?
I mean, that's an element of the feedback that we're seeking from you all, is if, we want to have that type of guidance within the plan. There has been some interest by some alders to include some guidance for maximum heights, but that's an element of feedback that we definitely want to hear from you.
Because I kind of think, I may be wrong, but I think kind of the way we're doing the land use, like if you do low density, high density, medium density, that kind of fixes itself, right? Because the low density is just behind the other ones, or they're hidden somewhat, so they're protected, kind of more private. You kind of build that. So I'm just curious, like, why are we limiting people in other areas that like, around the Beltline, Odana area, that they could build higher. If they wanted to. They may not, but.
It looked like Chris, did you want to say something, Chris?
I had a general question when you were going through why there were building heights in the plan. Because I know you said the Odana area plan, and I think maybe a couple others do specify building height, but not all do. Maybe it's older ones. And is that should that be a function of these plans, is to lay out specific building heights for specific areas? And it sounds like you just said that's been an interest of some alders or something, but.
Yes. And I think, outside of the Odana area boundary that we kind of pulled in the guidance from that plan and made some tweaks, there's pretty limited areas that were including that maximum building height. But like I said, I mean, if the direction from the commission is that we should, not have that at all, or change some portions of that, obviously we can make adjustments.
I mean, I like the minimum because, that makes sense because, we want that to encourage development and encourage density, like in the TLD overlays. That makes sense for minimums. But why? And we're stopping them at 6 stories or 8 stories. And if they can go higher, we can densify a little bit quicker-ish or in more area or less area with higher buildings.
If I can comment, I guess, I think you're right, but it assumes that the adjacent areas that might have a different land use designation are appropriately crafted. It's sort of like that it, and so to minimize, really drastic adjacent areas in height. And staff does a great job of looking at that when they draw up these plans. So generally that seems to be the case, but you'd have to have faith, I think, that was the case.
Oh, Kevin.
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to quickly provide a development review perspective. And one of the items, just for consideration, when we get a lot of questions about development inquiries before a project becomes an engineered proposal, one of the questions is how much building, how much height. And so one of the benefits, there's certainly benefits of having some flexibility, I think, is some of the points that have come across here. But on the other side, when people ask, well, how tall can I go? It's important from a development review standpoint that we can set reasonable expectations. And I think that's one of the benefits of having some sort of height recommendation here. So when people are contemplating projects, we can at least say with some certainty that this is the kind of height that's envisioned for this area. So that's just another. I just want to put that point out there for the consideration of the commission.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to come back to the B and C in terms of the change of the zoning for those. Are people comfortable with that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so in general, yes. And then D is suburban residential consistent to neighborhood mixed use. Comfortable with that, or questions about that?
I have one question. I really like, this is different from prior plans where we've left these places of worship as special institutional or something like that. So I really like this flexibility that we've been working towards. I was just wondering about communication with those places of worship. I think sometimes people can see a map like this and think like their property is rezoned. And I know there's a lot of great local resources actually of people that work with churches and can explain that process. So just wondering how that has been communicated or will be.
Yeah.
We can reach out to those institutions. Thus far, for land use changes, we haven't reached out to all the property owners that the future land use map would potentially change uses on. And maybe people would find it reassuring to hear from us, but I think, they can continue with the uses that they currently have as long as they want. The uses that are on these sites are allowed, and the land uses that, we're proposing to change them to. And I think in most of these cases, the future land use is shown as low residential, which these institutions aren't low residential either. And so we're changing it from one thing that they aren't to another thing that they aren't. And so that's one reason why we haven't done a specific outreach to those institutions thus far, but we could do that.
So if they demolish what is there and they want to build another church, they still be able to do that in future?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on zoning considerations as well as land use, but yeah.
Okay.
I'm good with this.
Good. Okay. Then we're on to Saw Creek Greenway Shared Use Path. Can you show on there, not just the path, but the testimony talked about alternative routes, that there are lots of alternative biking options. Could you point those out, please?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're showing on this map, lots of lines, lots of colors, but the existing, this is part of the memo, page 11 on the memo. Existing shared use paths are in dark purple, planned future shared use paths light purple, and then existing on-street bike facilities in dark green and planned on-street bike facilities in light green. And so there are some parallel on-street facilities, like Westfield Road. Portions of High Point Road have on-street facilities. And so I think that's what many people are referring to when they talk about alternate facilities. But at the same time, as Linda kind of mentioned, and just want to mention again, one of the concerns that we've heard from some folks through our feedback is that they're very uncomfortable on biking on-street facilities. And so part of that all ages and abilities consideration that Transportation Division is very dialed into is providing alternatives to on-street facilities for people who feel unsafe. And so an off-street facility like the Greenway would provide an alternative like that.
And what you were saying earlier with the testimony that people were saying about taking trees down, there is a possibility that what is going to be utilized to maintain kind of the water issue could be utilized for that bike path.
That's, yeah, I mean, a lot of that, potentially all of it, depending on how all the design considerations come together through a specific design process. But it sounded like from engineering, there was a good opportunity to overlap a significant portion of that with a maintenance path. And I was just going to mention, there already is kind of a maintenance path for some of the sanitary sewer lines that run through the area for, I don't know, roughly a third or maybe half of the length. And that's already kind of cleared of trees through the width of that sanitary maintenance access that exists right now.
Are those existing paths wheelchair accessible?
None of the kind of informal walking paths that,
So my grandchildren in a wheelchair will be able to go there, technically, right?
not right now. It's
Yes. Okay, because I mean, when people keep on talking about this bike path, we're not really talking about a bike path. We're talking about an all abilities path. It's for people to actually bike there, have their wheelchair, enjoy the nature that is being enjoyed right now by other people. It's for people that want to walk, for the person that got run over by a bike. It's for that person to have enough space for a bike to go through without running over, and that other person have a walking lane. I mean, is that what we're talking about? Is it an all abilities path? Or
Yes,
just a bike path?
that is what we're talking about. So we're working with traffic engineering on that aspect because they're, working on an all ages and abilities plan, and they would support, I think basically have said they would only support it if it was all ages and abilities, because that's the policy of the city is to make paths, that we're going to build for pedestrians to be all ages and abilities, so.
So it's not a bike path, it's a shared use path. Shared use
path.
Yeah, that's a better way
So
to
it's be
describe
wider
it.
than a typical bike path.
Correct.
How wide would it be?
Our current standard is 10 feet, so I think that's kind of the starting point for considering
But
design.
then some of this you have to change grades to make it accessible, because right now it'd be compliant because it's with the topography of the area, but if we're gonna make it all ages, all access, then some of that grade's gonna have to change. So do we know if that's gonna be significant to the current natural environment there? Like,
Well, I think engineering kind of wants to know what the policy direction is on including a path within this area. And once they know whether or not that should be a consideration for them, they're going to be able to delve into the specific design elements. So if there's a situation down the line where they dig into specific design and it proves to be, for whatever reason, unfeasible to design and install in a reasonable way, then they'd have to make adjustments or possibly not include it. But before doing that design, they want to have some policy directive to make that step.
There is quite a bit of grade change, is there not, in that area?
Portions of it.
And, well, and maybe this is in the weeds too much, but is there a single grade option so that it would, you know what I mean? Because there is a lot of grade change. Do you have to
switchbacks?
Yeah. Do you have to?
I think all that would come down to trying to integrate it through a specific design process.
Because I did go there, and it's a nice natural kind of area, and 10 feet wide. What's the at the narrowest? What is that area? Do you know?
Through the side to side from the corridor itself.
Right.
I'd have to double check. It varies pretty widely, but you'd have to get out the measuring stick, so to speak, and look at that.
So I have two more questions. One more question. So which refers to kind of what we're discussing. So a lot of people talk about lighting and that being a concern, but again, the question here is not what the path is going to look like because we don't have a design. It's just we want to put the bike, the multi-purpose use, all abilities path on the plan. Isn't that right? Because we cannot define. I mean, everybody's focused on the design of it, and again, I haven't heard you, and I've been in almost all the meetings that you guys have provided for the West area plan. I haven't heard anyone talking about what this is going to look like. Like, we don't have that information, right?
Right. We have an enormous amount of possible future bike routes in here, and we can't design all of those as part of this planning process. So we're looking for kind of the general policy direction to proceed or not proceed with.
Right.
Okay, so then how do people feel about this?
I have one more question, sorry.
Oh, okay.
And with that last bit that you said, is that your answer to the person who gave the public comment, this will be a path to nowhere, and that's because the network isn't entirely together yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we're showing on the map here, once a network is implemented along the lines of the plan, there'll be a lot of connectivity on a shared use path network.
Okay.
But if it's, constructed now and nothing else ever happens, then it would be less of a
thank you.
connection.
Okay, so how do people feel about it then?
Yes.
Okay. In. So then how about I think that takes care of the things specific to the West area plan discussion points. How about if we move on to Northeast and you can give us a quick as you can overview of that?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Oh, you didn't talk about the timeline, though.
I think that's in the memo, and we can just keep going.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Angela Puerta, and I'm one of the co-managers of the Northeast Area Plan here with Dan McAuliffe. Just to provide a little bit of kind of connection between the West area and Northeast. The Northeast Area Plan is a little bit larger than the West, over 2,000 acres larger with 7,500 acres. However, we have half of the number of residents that the West area folks have, with 15,000 residents. This area is one of the most diverse areas, followed by South Madison. We have about 43 0.7% Black, Indigenous, and person of colors and Hispanics, and it's a major employment anchor of the city, and also given its location. Just to provide an overview of our planning process, background, and our public outreach, we've conducted at least 2 virtual meetings since our kickoff, about 5 in-person discussions to neighborhood walks and 3 informal visits. We've also made phone calls, especially to those areas that are very hard to reach, like property managers and some businesses within the area. We started with 3 community navigators. Now we're down to 2, but we've been targeting the community block grant designated areas, which now we call it community strategy action areas, which are, and I'll show this later, the Sandburg neighborhood and Burke Heights neighborhood. So we've done that one-on-one outreach within the area, 2 community surveys, and 1 commenting map interactive in our website. Just to provide a summary of our most frequent public input, people are very excited about the BRT and the East Washington redevelopment overall. There are some concerns about the connection, especially crossing East Washington from, let's say, Sandburg to the East Town Mall. So people hope that with the BRT, that connection can be improved for pedestrians and bicyclists. Also, more desire for more walkable destinations. So there are very good bike paths and bike boulevards within the area. However, they are not linked to each other. So people would like to see more connectivity for pedestrians and bicyclists. Concerned overall, and we've heard this in pretty much all our neighborhood planning processes, affordable housing is a big concern. And there are some conflicting comments about Imagination Center. However, the majority of the comments are positive, that this will bring a place, a gathering space for this community that doesn't have that right now. So because we have currently the temporary homeless shelter and soon the permanent men's homeless shelter, there is a big concern about how we're going to address homelessness and what kind of impact that will have in the community. In general, and we heard this also during for the Sandburg and Burke Heights outreach, safety and lighting is a very important concern for the community. There is a lot of perception of fear within the area, especially along Hayes Road, which is kind of parallel to the interstate highway, and Sycamore Park, especially the bush areas in that spot. So, in Rindell Park, shelter is also a concern regarding safety. So for land use, we focus mostly on the areas that were outside the Hawthorne 2X area and Greater East Town Mall. We are proposing minor changes to those plans, but overall we focus mostly outside those 2 areas. And just to bring up the highlights, one of the future land use recommended changes are the East Washington Frontage Road, that I'll explain later in detail, but we would like to see a safer East Washington corridor, more like what you see close to the downtown, buildings close to the street, providing that sense of enclosure, appealing maybe more density, potential for more housing. Also, we are including more low-medium residential within neighborhoods. And this is because of the fact that we would like to see more missing middle in the areas, especially along connectors like Portage Road, that could provide that opportunity to increase density overall. Another change that I'll talk in a minute is the one of the major entrances of the city, which is Staunton Road and CV. We are proposing commercial and employment. So as I mentioned, East Washington frontage road is a very important area within within the planning area, and it was part of the Greater Eastern Mall area plan. It was proposed as commercial in order to preserve some of the local businesses that are in there. However, our team did an analysis, and the vast majority of these areas are used by chain stores like McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, stores like that. And we don't want to miss the opportunity to be along a major corridor where the BRT stations being nearby, and there is a lot of potential for mixed use. And we will add in the language of the plan that it's recommended that those local businesses be preserved. So that's one of the changes from the Great Eastern Mall. And East Washington frontage, what we've heard, so it's, as I said at the beginning, it's currently unsafe for pedestrians. There is a lack of visual appealing, and there is no community character. So we hope that by bringing that buildings to the front of East Washington, that can enhance the corridor unity and streamline the intersections dynamics, and by simplifying car turning movements and allowing for smoother traffic flow overall. The phasing might be a little bit complicated because these are large blocks, and we've met with engineering and other city staff, and we recognize that this could be challenging, given that there are many properties along that frontage road. But we see a good potential to provide that recommendation and have that sense of a closure, more visually appealing corridor, and more density given the BRT connections.
And before you move on, let's just take this one right now. 10A on our listing that you have there. Are people in harmony with that? Do you have any questions about it?
Is that frontage roads?
Go ahead, if you have something.
Yeah, I didn't, 10A is frontage roads, I assume. I don't have it in front. Yes.
Oh.
I have it. I need to find it.
Okay. Well, we've got it even in paper, but it's what she just described in terms of East Washington.
I'm just going to use a sandwich word, but yeah.
Okay. Am I seeing general
I don't
or
know about this.
questions?
We see the thumbs up and not on Zoom, so.
Yeah.
I know, it's hard.
I hope there's
I'm seeing
an
thumbs up,
accompanying
but
plan to
some
lower the
people
speed
are not
limit if
reacting.
this is the way it plays out.
Now, it's currently 35.
Yeah, so there was a Vision Zero action in, I think, last year to lower the speed limit to
From 45.
45 to 35. Another transportation recommendation that we're working on right now is some recommendations for the I-94 intersection.
Yeah.
That will have a big impact on the speed, that redesign. Our goal, obviously, as Anna was saying, is to try to modify the character of this section of East Washington, because it really, it's that in-between. It's not an urban arterial that supports strong neighborhoods and economic growth. It's kind of a highway in the city. Like, how do we transform that? And I think vacating those frontage roads is a big start.
Jeanette, did you have any comments or questions, or are you?
So, I mean, you can answer some of the questions about the safety, like how you cross the street there. I mean, and I get that those are Vision Zero and Safe Streets tasks. But, so I don't know that they fit here, but I'm still like, I can process in my head I mean, I get what you're saying about moving things closer to the edge, right? To the, so can you explain to me what that does for the, what is the meaning of doing that? 'Cause I mean, I want my building to be as far away from the street, but why is it important to bring it closer to the street?
Well, that's typically a visual cue for vehicles to slow down. That's one of the reasons why bringing buildings close to the street might help. And also, when you're walking, it just feels like a sense of enclosure, like trees next to you with a building next to you, an entrance, so you have ways to just, or areas to walk to, right? And if we're recommending mixed use, that means commercial on the first floor. So for pedestrians, it will be easier to identify those commercial spaces.
So I'm envisioning it looking similar to like the 800 block of East Washington, where the Constellation and the Galaxy, and then the 900 and the Lyric, which is a relatively pleasant place to be.
It's noisy, but you have a cafe, you have an area to sit as well, and
So if you actually, that's kind of why we included those images on the slide. Actually, believe it or not, the 800 block of East Wash has a greater traffic count than the areas by the mall. And if you think about where would you rather sit outside and have a meal or have a coffee, I can't imagine it's out by East Town in its current physical form. So how do we start with transforming that? Another improvement that will be coming to this area, particularly in the Independence area, is because that is getting a BRT station, I believe there is a traffic signal that's going to be installed there that will dramatically improve the ease of crossing as well. And really just improving the character. If you think we can exactly build, the simplest answer is to build new buildings on former strip malls behind a frontage road. Is that going to change the pedestrian character into that urban character, into that transit-oriented development character that we're trying to seek as a city? I think there's better answers. There's certainly challenges with that, but I think that's kind of why we're trying to advocate for.
So, again, discussing, like you mentioned earlier, how this will be a challenge because there are big structures already there or whatever. So wouldn't also these be areas where you could improve the all ability soldiers path, or do you just want to keep people away from here and move them on the back roads? And why wouldn't you use that space for that instead of bringing buildings closer?
Yeah, and well, actually, we've met. There is not the image here, but there was a 3D image that shows how we can, because of enough space that we can have bike path with a sidewalk, urban furniture, things like that.
You can actually see it in the dark gray path on that three-dimensional images is how we feel we can accommodate a shared use path on the north side. Traffic engineering, or it's funny that we call it traffic engineering because it's really transportation engineering. They are looking at how they can get a
I like that, transportation.
shared use path on the north side, because we do see that's a critical need. And in its current form, no one would really want to bike on East Washington in that location. So it is something how we're thinking about how we can do that. That takes up about another 12 feet of space. We don't need another 120 feet that we could accommodate. When we look at the areas that we're recommending to vacate in totality, it's about 2.3 acres. So it's quite a bit of housing that could be built on that 2.3 acres. It will be challenging, and phasing will be something that needs to be considered, but it is quite a bit of land.
Okay, so
I feel more comfortable now. Yes.
more comfortable? Okay, good. So I think that is in general.
I will add, I'm in favor too. I think my concern though is that like that section of East Wash is never going to be that pleasant, at least anytime soon. So like, at least what this rendering shows is not much connectivity behind, like I would like to see more connectivity off of East Wash to counteract that. You know, like that's kind of what the frontage road does now, is create a space that isn't East Wash. So emulating that, I think, for people walking and biking is...
I'm thinking about the John Nolan redesign, how this will connect to that route, in the future too, so. Yeah.
That's a good point, thank you.
Okay, then moving on to B. Can B.
What's 10B? Okay. Yeah, so the map that you're seeing here is the intergovernmental agreement. The greenish area is the current town of Burke. So we've had conversations with the village of the Forest. Some portions of the town of Burke will move to the village of the Forest. Madison, or Sun Prairie. So the area, all the area that you see within the Northeast Area Plan will be part of the City of Madison by 2036. So currently, the area that you're seeing here, the north of Stoughton Road, is industrial. So what we did was shifting to commercial, largely to reflect what's there. This area is next to the interchange, so it's a great location for commercial and employment. We'll offer also provide services to all the other industrial areas and employment areas, and will also help us a better gateway to the city. So that's why we're proposing commercial. So the intergovernmental agreement said that DeForest will provide water and sewer, even after it's currently providing a great portion of water and sewer in the area, and after the attachment, it will continue to provide water and sewer. So we think that change in the future land use will be feasible. So something that I forgot to mention at the beginning was the LMR changes for the centers of worship. So that's something that we are largely doing during this process as well, except for very tiny point, tiny from the map, but on the ground is larger, is the Holy Cross Church. We consider that due to being so close to the interstate and having its context is more low residential, we are keeping it low residential unless commissioners think that we should not make that exception, but leave it as LMR.
So I want to take this land use, Highway 51 and CV, and find out if commissioners have any questions about that change that's being recommended. That's in the staff memo 10B.
And so just to add, I just want to be clear with this. The employment area, the change is recommended from open space to employment. We have had some development inquiries. The sewer service is somewhat unique in the fact that the city cannot provide sewer to this, as Angela mentioned, to the IGA. It currently in the IGA, because the IGA only exists till 2036, DeForest can provide water and sewer. They have that capacity now. This is also in a protected area, so if it develops prior to 2036, it will develop outside the city, then come into the city. If it develops after 2036, it can only be served at mutual agreement by the city and the village. So it's this kind of weird. We can recommend a change in land use when it's outside the city and it'll be served by DeForest. It's just a unique situation that in the future it will need to be served by DeForest. After the IGA goes away and is in the city, it will, if it hasn't developed, it would need then to be approved again by mutual agreement of DeForest and Madison. Very unique situation, but it is developable. There is some level of interest, and there is sewer infrastructure nearby.
And
That was my question, I stood again. Other like this, right there. Other areas like this, you already answered.
You got the answer?
You just answered.
Okay, good, very good. Any other?
Question. And you get the impression at least that making this change isn't going to change DeForest's attitude about being able, it could be a much higher usage of sewer or whatever.
There's some capacity. It's not unlimited. And so whatever, if there is a development proposal coming forward, they would need to work with the city or Village of DeForest to ensure there's capacity for that intended use or upgrade the infrastructure there to accommodate that. What we're now talking about is, do we even want to enable that conversation by showing a future land use other than open space? If the answer is no, the answer is no. It, keeps area that's in the city served by the city. Again, this is a extremely atypical situation, and it is not something that we come across at all.
Okay.
But because of topography, it's very, it'd be impractical for the city to serve with sewer.
I guess I'll weigh in and say it doesn't hurt to try.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. If the developer wants to negotiate sewer with DeForest, they can do that.
Okay, good.
All right.
Then moving on to the low-medium residential expansion within neighborhoods. That, to me, was a little cryptic here, where you were looking at and what you were saying. So could you
Yeah, so
explain that?
I think we're taking a very similar approach to the west areas, looking at where we have, where it's appropriate to have somewhat elevated intensities of neighborhood uses, where we have park space, where we have neighborhood shopping, those type of amenities. So the image that you're seeing, or is on the slide, is right next to Rindall Park. It's relatively low density. It is developed. There also is some, I think there is a center of worship there as well. So, does it make sense to have a little bit elevated density next to those neighborhood amenities? We saw that as an opportunity.
And what is it now?
Low residential.
Oh, okay, so to go to low medium.
And this is Randall Park,
Okay.
where the Imagination Center
Oh,
will
right.
be.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll have more access to amenities.
It is on transit as well. That was one of our things. We have, aside from the BRT, there is a couple more circuitous routes
Okay.
that are on Portage and Hayes. Those were kind of where we were looking at most.
Questions, thoughts?
I'm good with this.
Okay. Okay, I'm hearing good with this, and thumbs up. So I guess we can move on then. So 11 talks about Highway 51 and I-94 corridor studies. And I'm not sure, is there any question with that, or were you just communicating that, 11A?
I think that's more communicating that study's
Okay.
ongoing.
Okay, I think we have gone through that before, so we'll move on. Bike networks. Is there any specific thing that you were asking about there in terms of bike network?
Not particularly. We don't have the conflicts. So we have a couple areas that we're really looking to bridge. Portage Road is kind of one of those main east-west. For us, the big divide is Highway 51 and where the networks on the east side are connecting to the ones on the west side, and where do we find those critical linkages. Portage Road is one of those. We're recommending a couple changes, as well as that's kind of the main one that's new in this. There are a couple other off-street paths that we're recommending to shift. One was impossible to build because it was actually in the middle of a runway. It's from old plan from after the airport expanded to the north. We're recommending the change off the runway. That would be kind of a high traffic area. So that's largely where it kind of filling in those gaps, particularly to the north where we had. There was also some addition of some off-street paths to the north where there's some questions about future interchanges with Hepker Road and trying to provide a better cycling experience across those so you're not competing with ramps.
Okay, so then the next thing was street networks. I looked at that, and it, all looked logical to me in terms of what was being looked at to connect.
There's one in our slide that we definitely want, and maybe
Nakusa.
Nakusa
Okay,
Trail.
to highlight? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So let's talk about this. So Nakusa Trail is super interesting because this is the right-of-way as it exists now.
Sorry.
It's perfect. It's all good.
It's the Zoom that's...
It's all good. You're good. So Nakusa Trail was, pretty, it was platted to the old. The one thing we have to remember is Sycamore Park was not always Sycamore Park, it was Sycamore Landfill. And so that obviously is no longer a landfill. It is a park. It's a dog park. There are some, we have to monitor it because it is a landfill. Can you put it up in?
What?
Just the presenter view.
Yeah, I'm trying, but doesn't show the pictures.
It's perfect. That's okay.
Okay.
Click through this. So wait, hold on a second before we go. So there's a couple things that, before we go into this. So the one thing that we noticed right away is you look at the street network, even if Nakusa Trails goes through, we end up having a drive or a neighborhood south of Sycamore. This front door really becomes Commercial Avenue and Highway 30. That is completely separate from the neighborhood to the east that is really centered on Thompson Drive. So we have these two adjacent residential neighbors that almost have nothing to do with each other. And we have a street that was never built because it's probably next to a landfill and no one wanted to be there. So now we have a couple situations. The first one is where Nakusa Trail ends. We've terminated into a bike path. There, it's a great path. We're also hearing that there's a lot of actual cars that are driving on there at night, creating safety problems. Can you go to the next one? We also know that when we look down at that intersection down at Commercial Avenue and Pulley Drive, we did a neighborhood walk, and it was an extremely uncomfortable place to walk. There's no sidewalks there, and you can see from the tire tracks, cars aren't exactly slowing down when they fly through that intersection.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a couple problematic intersections. We have an unlinked neighborhood, and to us, the logical solution, or one of the logical solutions, is trying to reconnect these neighborhoods with a street network. That is always challenging, as you know. Our thought is this could exist as a phased project, with one phase possibly looking at extending Nakusa Trail through the existing right-of-way to Pulley. And over time, as the opportunities and as Parks gets the opportunity to adjust their Parks master plan for Sycamore, they could extend the street to Jana to better connect the neighborhoods.
Very nice.
So that is our question for Nakusa Trail. As you know, street connections are challenging. I don't want to diminish that, but it does seem one that could have long-term value.
I'm good with that.
What would be the challenge of just going all the way to Jana now?
It's a park thing.
It would just be a political question, budgeting and political question.
And it parks.
So basically plan for it, but maybe not do it right this second.
Yes. So one of the things that we just want to also be respectful of Parks, they just went through their Parks master plan for Sycamore, which did not reflect the trail. That might be getting updated as a result of this project, because through one of our meetings, they might actually be acquiring part of the Stearns packaging, which is just to the north of the left arrow, that big Woodlands. So as much as they just updated their plan, they might be updating their plan very soon and looking at how this could work together. Parks is in support of this. They know that edges of parks that don't have street frontage tend to become people's backyards. They don't have as high a level of utilization. People can't get to parks. They can't see them. And so they are supportive as well. So.
Okay. So I'm seeing thumbs up and shaking heads. Okay, so we have 5 more minutes. Can you brief us on number 12?
Is that the building heights?
Within 5 minutes?
Absolutely.
Okay, and we'll see if we can at least.
So a couple things in building heights with it are unique. We have similarities and differences from the west area. First, we have the presence of the
Proactive rezoning.
Yeah, we're not
official
building
mapping.
East Town.
Oh, East Town, yes. So at this point, we haven't studied proactive rezoning extensively because of the high level that was done for the Greater Easttown Area Plan, and also the official mapping. We do know that there was a different approach for the Greater Easttown Area Plan as well as the Odana Area Plan. I believe that had to do with the support of the elected officials at the time. We do know that there's been a lot of change in sentiment about trying to be more aggressive to encourage housing. We could definitely take a look again at Easttown to see if there are streets that might make sense to officially map to better reflect the network that was envisioned in that plan, if it's if it's something that Plan Commission thinks makes sense.
I am a fan of proactive rezoning. I mean, if we have plans and we don't do that, it makes it like very difficult then to implement our plan. So I'm a yes, look at it person. I'm seeing another thumbs up.
Well,
and
the question
shaking.
is if they should explore. We're not in.
Yes, right,
Oh, okay.
right, yes.
All right, good. Because I had many questions that 3 minutes will not be enough. So yes, explore and then.
Right.
Share.
Exactly.
Yes.
So the last thing I think we want to have maybe even start the discussion, because I think it leads into that proactive rezoning conversation, is about the building heights.
Okay, really quick. Can we just make sure that we're very proactive in communicating with the
Property
landowners there? Because I think we've had several items on our agenda the last 2 years where they felt they weren't communicated with. And I think one was some mapping stuff, one was, the land use, and they felt like we were steamrolling them. So let's make sure, if we can make sure we do that, I think that'd be great. So thank you.
Yeah, I was going to add, I know we've discussed this before with official mapping, but ensuring that our official map is actually accessible because it does have huge implications for property owners. So how is that electronically available and communicated to people?
Yeah,
I would
easily
want to have that
findable.
in place before we continue doing aggressive official mapping.
But we're not doing anything because it's just.
it's just
Exploring.
Exploring, okay.
It is 7:58 right now. We do not have time to get into heights because we have a hard cutoff at 8 o'clock, which we have adhered to in the past. And I'm going to just ask, is this something that we could have at the tail end of our January meeting then to further discuss these things?
I'm looking at Kevin Furco over there. I think we can. Let's take another look at the meat on that agenda already. And see whether.
The lighter of the 2 January agendas.
Yep.
Okay.
And if the commission would also like to have the broader discussion about some of the shared issues that
Yes,
teams are
definitely.
facing, I
Yes,
think that's
yeah.
really important for us as a staff team.
Yeah, the planned retirement.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
Can we do the demo one too at that time, or would that be?
That's what we were looking at doing.
And that's
Well,
quick.
Yeah, hopefully that would be fairly quick. And that demo thing is from a year ago. The Plan Commission asked to have that kind of thing done because commissioners were clearly considering future use, and there was not really a reason not to if there were a conditional use. So anyway, I think that that should be fairly quick.
I wish we could do it Monday while it's fresh in our minds, but I understand we can't.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to too. Okay.
Legally, we may be able to
Okay,
change the
check.
agenda.
Check, yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
It's posted.
Yeah, anyway.
Publicly, but we could amend the agenda to add one
That
more
one
and
thing.
other items. Which one? The demo?
I would do the demo because I don't think, I think that that's less controversial and of interest.
Staff will be in touch with the chair tomorrow.
Okay, yeah. If it works, if it doesn't work, then. Okay, I want to say thank you very much to staff. There clearly has been a lot of work done on all these things, so thank you very much. Thank you. Anything else before I look for a motion to adjourn? Anything else? Okay, then I think we're looking for a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Alder Figueroa Cole. Is there a second? Seconded by Kathleen Spencer. And I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, we're adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks.